We said the weather was absolutely perfect. Look at that, a beautiful sunset here in Florida. 65 degrees, but it's going to cool down considerably more than that through the overnight hours. Delta Wing back out in front. Andy Merrick behind the wheel, but we understand that he has a pit stop coming up.
Only.
So you heard on the radio he'll get fuel, and did he say rears only?
I thought I heard fuel only, but.
Well, we'll find out.
Watch your pit lane speed. Watch your.
See him dragging a tire there, leaving a skid mark.
We'll find out when he gets to the mark. The top three have already pitted. So we had been looking at that battle between Dane Cameron and Max Angelelli. They pitted. Now Merrick, the 55, is pitted as well. Lance Stroll being shown in third right now. And here comes Merrick to his marks. 27 laps.
Looks like all four. Look at those front tires.
I'm telling you, if I'm a tire changer, I want to be up front.
Oh, some issue on the right rear. We've had a little issue on almost every one of their stops, so not exactly smooth sailing. We had two stalls. It looks like engaged the gear. Nope.
They were working on the drink bottle holder on the interior, and this is a painful stop. It's those little niggly things. You don't think it's a big deal, but if you think about the fact that your competition is going down the front straightaway through the tri-oval at 190 miles an hour, every second that you sit there, you're losing a lot of distance on the racetrack. Oh,
yeah. Let's watch this pit out with the. We saw the slippery conditions catching Sean John. Look how slow he takes that corner. Getting little wiggles.
You got to work your way through, and as the nighttime, just a handful on the way out, and as the nighttime really closes in, those temperatures come down. It's going to make it even more difficult on the way out.
I was noticing, I commented during the break, that that's the first time I've actually seen the Delta Wing slide the rear. I saw it once in the bus stop and once through the.
A lot of y'all. Now, it's going to take a lap or so to really get the temperature that you want, as you see the 52 right there behind.
Yeah,
being shown in second in prototype challenge right now.
Being really easy on tires usually goes hand in hand with it's hard to get them hot.
Yeah, exactly. If it doesn't wear on them, it doesn't heat them up very quickly, does it?
Does handle on the straightaway there. Look at that thing.
Nicholas Boole in the 52 for PR1 Matheson right there. And yeah, the straight line speed. But you got to think about this. You don't gain any heat in the tires around that banking. You get a little pressure down on the car, but any temperature that you may have gained through the infield, you may lose when you get up there. Oh, and Andy's got a handful right now. Take another look at the pit stop for Andy Merrick and listen to the radio.
Hey, don't spin the wheel. Don't spin the wheel. You're in gear, dude. My foot's on the clutch.
That's interesting. Remember the problems, and here he is into the bus stop. But remember the problems on the pit stops when they've left and stalled the car, and think to what he was just saying. Hey, my foot's on the clutch, but somehow it's engaging. Perhaps that's the reason that we saw those stalls on the pit stops on the way off.
Yeah, there's clearly an issue with the clutch where the clutch maybe is not fully disengaging or just barely disengaging. So where they're used to it taking up in a certain spot, it's taking up a lot quicker.
Might be right there on the floor where it kicks in. There's no gradual lead into it. And Merrick now working through some traffic. The number 9, the Audi from Stevenson, just in front. Stevenson running this very familiar 6 and 9 colors that they were, or numbers that they ran in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge Series. Running it on their Audis here. Yeah, and you wonder why Timmy Keene was so adamant about don't spin the wheels. We understand Andy Merrick is going to get a drive-through penalty. When you're up on the jacks like that, you can't have the rear wheel spinning. It's a safety issue. And there's the drive-through penalty call for Merrick, and it's for those wheels spinning while up on the jacks. Into the bus stop. Right behind him, the Lamborghini really just close to losing control, close to running right over the back of Andy Merrick there. That's the 16 from Change.
Justin Marks behind the wheel in a battle with that second Riley Viper.
Well, and you got to think about something on that 16 car. Spencer Pumpelly had a crash in it the other day. They didn't know if they were going to get it fixed. It is an aluminum chassis, and so to weld that aluminum back in and get those pickup points in to the chassis is a lot of work. They got that done, but Spencer said, we had a vibration before, and it's not gone. The car runs again, and we're back out there, and that's great, but I don't know how it's going to be in the race. There's a vibration. We can't put our finger on what it is, and so perhaps the Huracan for Change Racing not really where they want it to be, so to speak. Justin Marks, seen him in sports car racing a lot, seen him in the NASCAR world and trucks and Xfinity and the like, and now back at the Rolex 24. We're talking about what a great run that Dane Cameron had a little bit earlier. It'll be interesting to see if he and Eric Kern can raise their game just a little bit in 2016. Perhaps there's a Drivers' Championship available to these guys at the end of the season, Justin.
Dane, we were just talking about what a great run you'd had, but Brian has sort of laid down the this year that maybe you in your hands this season guys apart.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We were pretty disappointed to come up a little bit short last year after having such a strong back half of the season. So we know we gave a lot of points away, especially in the endurance races on the front half of the year. So definitely trying to make amends for that. And for everyone in my car, looking for our first Rolex 24 win and hope that kickstarts our championship campaign for the Whelen Corvette.
So tell me, obviously, not much wet, dry running this week. A hot start to the race. You spent a long time in the car. Just dropping now. What's that like for your car? Does it suit the way the car handles?
Yeah, it's certainly difficult. I mean, we felt pretty well prepared after all the November running and the Roar running. But then with the amount of rain we had, and only basically every driver got about 5 laps in the track yesterday. So, and the track was completely green and still pretty green to begin with. Not a lot of rubber into it, like we left at the Roar. So I think we're hoping for a little bit more rubber. So I think as the temps go down and the rubber comes up, I think our car is going to come alive. So really looking forward to the end of the race.
Okay, perfect. I think he's also looking forward to getting back in the car, guys.
And why wouldn't you? It's that magical time where the sun's beginning to set. It's cooling off. You enjoy driving at night, Tommy?
I did. The transitions are tough, but a lot of what Graham Rahal said really holds true. Because you can't see anything, you tune into your other senses, and you really get into a groove, and you find you can go really fast without a lot of effort.
The other thing is great for the spectators. Watch the brakes on these cars. Watch the exhaust as they come off the corner. A lot of eye candy here as you see that metal glowing, those hot brakes. It's the Rolex 24 from Daytona, the WeatherTech Sports Car Series. More to come.
Welcome back to the opening round of the 2016 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It is the Rolex 24 at Daytona International Speedway. And now with Daytona rising, it's the Motorsports Stadium. And boy, that stadium aspect coming to life even more so here, Cal, as the sun sets. Greg Creamer and Calvin Fish with you here in the booth. Justin Bell and Jamie Howe with us down in pit lane. And Brian and Tommy were alluding to it, this special time of night as it's really dusk and it starts to settle in just a little bit. And this is the time, especially at Daytona, because it's the longest stretch of night of any 24-hour sports car race. Yeah, it's lit now a little bit better than it used to be, but still, this is endurance racing now. Getting through the night, and guess who's up front? Our defending winners overall here.
Yeah, Jamie Mack, I mean, he's just a stalwart now in these 24-hour races. I think it's his 8th race that he's done here at the 24-hour event and just really gets the job done. I mean, for so long, the NASCAR guys didn't really have the reputation of being able to perform on the road courses, but I think over the years they've got better and better. And Jamie's just a superb talent anyway, and just one of the nicest guys you meet, real character, and fun to have in the paddock, even if it is just once a year.
Quick. No question about that. I mean, no matter seems to be what he drives. he gets into it and goes awfully quickly right now. Another impressive run is sitting in second spot. Obviously, Dane Cameron giving it a good run early, but Johnny Adam in the number 31 Whelen car right now. And there's a connection there for that Whelen name, isn't it?
Yeah, there absolutely is. I mean, Johnny won the Sunoco Whelen Challenge over in the UK. He's an Aston Martin Racing factory driver, and with his performances over in the UK last year, got the award. I think it's the 4th or 5th year now that we've seen the challenge winner come over here and compete at the 24-hour race, and he's really done a great job. He just laid a lap down just 5 minutes into his stint, a 1:41.2, which is only 4/10 off of Dane's fastest lap of the race. So very impressive young man. I spoke to Dane this week about him. He said, man, he was immediately up to speed, a great fit for our team. So when you have him, Eric Curran, Simon Pagenaud, Dane Cameron, that is a stout driver lineup.
That is a huge lineup. Here's the number 33 in pit lane. Of course, this is from Riley Motorsports, and Mark Miller on board that Garage Monkey Dodge Viper GT3R.
They've been having a great run, running up in the top 5 most of the day, and the Viper is one of these teams that has competed in a similar guise, but they've now got all the GT3 spec, the traction control, the ABS, different rear wing, a lot more downforce, so they should have the reliability. This team is the defending champions here with the 93 machine at the Rolex 24-hour race, went on to win the North American Endurance Challenge, so it's got the pedigree, but it's a different ball game this year with the amount of competition with the new cars there.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And one thing that I've noticed is clearly it takes them a bit longer to refuel that car. Obviously, it's the big V10, and they try and match that up, don't they? You know, I mean, with restrictors in terms of flow, tank size, etc. But it does seem to take them a little bit of time. There is the number 4, Tommy Milner, on board the Velocity Yellow Corvette Racing C7R. And, of course, this is the team. You look at last year, they swept the big sweep of the big 3 here. This was the team, this car, that won at Le Mans.
Yeah, and getting back to your point on the pit stop with the Viper, sometimes when that refueling looks like it's taking a long time, it's because the pit crew is really good at the tire changes.
Well, that's a good point.
There's just a big delta between the tire change being done and the refueling being complete. But yeah, to your point, I mean, domestically, Tommy Milner and Ollie Gavin have had a very hard time the last couple of years here over in the Tudor Championship, which is now the WeatherTech Championship this year, of course, but they won the big one last year at Le Mans. What a victory that was. When they lost the one car, the 63 machine, they run as the number 64 at Le Mans, and they came through with a victory with Tommy and Ollie and obviously Jordan Taylor joining them. It was a superb result with a lot of pressure on them with just a single entry at the 24 Hours at Le Mans come race day.
Yeah, 2012 champion here, and then it's, you said, been a little bit dry for them, obviously. Interesting development, speaking about Jordan Taylor, the 2 Taylor brothers are going to be the 3rd driver in those 3 cars, so that's going to be pretty fascinating. Now, we've been watching the phenomenal run by the Delta Wing here, and right now I think Jamie has caught up with the man behind the vision.
And that's Don Panos. Greg, Don, this has been a few years in the making, this Delta Wing program for you. What's been the biggest growth area over the offseason with this car?
Really getting to the bottom of the gearbox, getting a new one designed and put in the car, and then the team being together, all the hard work they've done. When the gearbox was fixed, then they could concentrate on things on the car, and it's working beautiful. They've done a great job.
Now, you're one of these people who you put your whole heart behind a racing program. You love motorsports. What has it been like for you so far in the beginning of this race to see your car performing so well at Daytona?
Well, I'm proud. I'm proud of the people. I'm proud of the drivers. And I'm proud of the technology. It shows it's working. You know, we're at 340 horsepower, and they're 650. And that shows that technology does work.
The time that you've spent around sports car racing, what are your thoughts on where it is coming into this season?
Well, when I look at the number of entries and I see the people here at Daytona, I think it's doing pretty good.
I have to agree with you. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. And out there to the fans, watch that Delta Wing.
And in those colors, I know the guys were talking about it, reminiscent of the old Roadster days, and I mean, when Jan Magnussen, David Brabham were hustling that car around, some absolutely phenomenal racing, and that car right now at Delta Wing is flying.
Well, you just got to love Don and the innovation. He loves stepping outside of the normal box, and with this design, he's got his heart and soul behind it, and it's so wonderful to see it leading legitimately. And right now, it's showing the pace and the consistency and the reliability that they've been fighting for. This is just a big day for them.
Yeah, one thing Don Panos and that team loves to do is innovate. A few do it better here. We are pretty much now close to total darkness here. Here are your 4 class leaders. We'll be right back.
Night lasts longer here at Daytona than at any major race, and it brings with it a special beauty. The cars transformed into fast-moving pinpricks of bright light, the pits into a brilliant whiteness, the Ferris wheel revolving as if it was geared somehow to the cars on the track. And it is in this long night that the noise fills the darkness, inescapable, the dull roar and the high-pitched wail, working into every nook and cranny like a rising tide.
The poet laureate of motorsports, boy, I'll tell you. And he has lived it, he has done it, and he knows how to capture it here and anywhere else for that matter, back at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And it is, no question, a magical time here. However, some problems here. That is the number 8, Chris Cumming, behind the wheel. That's one of the 2 Starworks entries here, and right dead center of the middle of the track in turn 1. When you're coming from immense speed, Cal, that is not a spot to be stopped. Looked like he almost had it moving.
Yeah, he did, and this is a bad spot for them. Remember, the other car from Starworks just had a major crash exiting pit lane. So, and they were 2 of the favorite cars, showed a lot of pace in the test.
Try everything off and everything on.
It's Peter Barron on the radio too, Chris. Ooh, someone taking that inside line there. I think that may have been Angelelli possibly.
Yeah, and I think there's the that could have been a pass under yellow as well, because I think the car he went by that was on the outside was Johnny Adam.
Yeah, certainly tight there. We're going to have another look at that one in case Max did pass under yellow. But I think when you're on the radio, I mean, if I was trying to spot for the cars that are out there on the racetrack, just say take the wide line, trying to pitch it, you might get it wrong and just misjudge it. So just say take the high line through turn 1.
Yeah, this is sketchy. Now, we're getting a report the engine is running, but he cannot find a gear right now in that machine. And it was the Delta wing.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, I would be saying go high, because if you see it the last second.
Unbelievable, from the tremendous run that they had to this. I mean, that's substantial damage, Cal. That
was a big hit.
Yeah.
That was a huge hit. And this is a car that's led this race for many laps here today. We spoke to Don Panos. He was so proud of the speed and finally getting somewhere with the development of this car. Here you watch. He's trying to get it to the inside, and there's just no way he can tuck it down to that apex, and then he's not got enough time to get back to the outside of the stationary car.
Boy, that was big. That lifted that number 8 coming right up.
Wow. Now hearing some radio communication that Andy did not know there was a car down there, which surprised me. Timmy Keane and that group have a lot of experience.
Yep.
Catherine Crawford, the engineer there, I'm sure that group would have been watching the monitors, and unless they got a radio issue between the driver and the pit lane. Also damage to this car, which one of the favorites in the PC class, Greg, as well. Stunning driver lineup there that Peter Barron put together.
Well, and that's one of the things we heard the report that Brian was talking about, that Peter Barron said, well, let's check into the radio here. We'll replay it for you.
I just was telling you he was in the middle of the road. Well, I didn't hear it. I had nobody said anything to me. I came around the corner, there's a car in the middle of the road. Well, you can hear me now. I've been talking to you the whole way down the front stretch, bud.
Yeah, as I said, very surprised that Timmy wouldn't have been giving him that communication. Timmy believed he was, and he's saying I wasn't hearing it. And the end result is the car is badly damaged.
Well, the good news is he was obviously chatting on the radio and just waiting, obviously, for the word from the crew. They want to get the field under control, I'm sure. There he comes.
And just the way the front end of that Delta Wing is built, I mean, those front track rods are basically like your pen that you pull out of your pocket. They're so tiny little pieces. I mean, they do the job in terms of the load of the car, but when you have a hit like that, they're just going to break to pieces.
And the irony is, what I was going to say was Brian had been talking about how Peter Barron had said we have a great lineup in both of our cars. We really think this could be a great year for us. And in a very short span of time, both of the cars have had some fairly major damage unfold. So let's go back again, Cal, and watch.
You see the other cars have slowed down a lot more, and Andy's coming in there at normal speed. There's obviously yellow flags being waved, but he's just trying to get it down on the normal line, which would be apex there, sees the car, and then kind of caught in between two minds as to which way to go, and he can't react enough to get it back out to the outside of the car. See Chris Cumming just lifted up into the air.
And that tells you that there's some energy that exchanged right there. So, wow, that was a substantial clout right there. So we're under a full course caution right now. And of course, you know, one of the classes that we've been following a lot is, of course, GTLM with all of the great developments. But one of the things that remains unchanged, Jamie, is the tires that, in fact, for this race, all of the teams are running.
That's right, Greg. And at this point, all of the teams for the season will be running on Michelin tires. The new Ford GTs, they opted to run on Michelin. Scott, why do you feel like all of these manufacturers choose to partner up with Michelin when starting a race program?
Well, I think it comes from the innovation that Michelin brings to new vehicles for the car manufacturers, and because of that, they want to be our race partners, and we love that. And we've got a great example right here with Corvette, for example, where the same guy that designs the Corvette street tires is the guy that's the race engineer for all the Corvette races. And it just, the whole track to street, we're here to learn in endurance racing and apply that learning to the street so we can make safer, longer lasting, and more high performing tires for the consumer. That's really what it's all about.
How do you do that as a company? I mean, you think about race tires being pushed to the absolute limit. What other initiatives do you have to get that same technology to the street?
Well, obviously, in addition to learning from racing, we do a lot of our own testing and research, our own test track in wet and dry, so we learn a lot from that. But really, endurance racing is a great test bed to test tires in the most extreme conditions, and we really get a lot of learning out of that. And that's why we love endurance racing and why Michelin really likes to be here.
We're glad to have you here. Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, we've just action in the pit lane as all the prototypes come off the NASCAR Turn 4 into the pit lane for a very important stop. Obviously, they're not scheduled, but the full course yellow brought it out. I'm here right now looking at the O2 car. Absolutely spotless right now. They've just refinished it. See the fueling come out. They've changed all four cars, and off they go. Jamie?
And the 0-1, Lance Stroll stays on board.
Interesting to see if the 10 car can jump around here, because the 02 was pretty much out of fuel. It had 24 laps on that run. Well, and there you see the 10 car and 31 just sort of like Johnny Adam went right around him.
I wonder if this wasn't an attempt at a self-correction here, because we talked about that. I thought Angelelli had ducked underneath.
Yep.
And well, here, let's take a look at it here. And watch this. Just a little bit.
Yeah, no, he's already.
So that was actually the 90, but what we're looking for is, you know, we think that the number 10 went to the inside when the 31 went outside to split the Delta Wing and passed him under that yellow. There was a yellow there. And I wonder if that wasn't from race control saying, flip it back, we'll let you get away with it. So,
and if that is the case, I really like it if they are making those sort of moves. If you can basically self-police it and correct the situation, that's the way to go, rather than these guys having to serve major penalties and costing them. I think under that scenario, it was a little bit confusing with the stranded car possibly.
Yeah. Well, and here I think we're going to be able to show you what we were talking about here. Next couple of cars in, there's the 31 of Adam, and there goes Angelelli.
Yep.
And I think you're right. It was, you had to pick your spot, and I think maybe that's why race control may have just said, we don't have confirmation on this, may have said just
give it back.
It was an unusual circumstance, flip it. So we'll see what race control decides on that one. But at least it's back the way it was at this stage.
Because if you took it to its extreme, if someone just stops on the racetrack, what are you supposed to do? Stop behind them? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's, I mean, you have to read it. You know, from the control standard. By the way, the number 55, this is a nice thing to be able to say, the Mazda prototype leading right now. And this has been an absolutely great story for them with this new power plant and that chassis working very, very well. Remember, it was here last year that for the first time ever, a Mazda and a diesel led overall for a brief period here at Daytona. And now to see this car leading legitimately, running strongly in the top 5. And Cal, we've been talking about some of the great drivers, some of the world-class drivers, some of the special drivers in this field. I would say that maybe Mr. Bomarito fits right into that mold.
Yeah, I know that the Ganassi group were very interested in Jonathan Bomarito, but he was contracted to Mazda, so he stayed where he is, and I think he's pretty happy with that decision. I mean, he's got a great car underneath him this year, a great team, and you know, throughout the trials and tribulations with that Skyactiv diesel, they really put together a great group. They really maximized what this car could do, and sometimes that's good. When you keep digging and digging for the last few tenths, then suddenly you throw, you know, that power that they have this year in the back of it. I think this car's going to be very strong this year. I mean, Jonathan really should have won the GTLM championship along with Kuno Wittmer for Viper back in 2014. They split the two drivers to the final round to really make sure that one of them got it. He was unfortunately on the wrong end of that deal. He's won here at the Rolex 24 before with Mazda, so he knows how to get the job done and a real talent behind the wheel.
Here's a look from Max Angelelli's on board at that pass. You see Adam just off to the right there, Cal.
Yeah, and they just split the stranded car there, and Max ends up being a position ahead. And I think you're spot on, mate. I mean, I think they just realized they needed to give that back, and they did it under the pit stop.
Speaking of which, here comes the GT field down into the pits, or at least a large chunk of it, as the pits are open now for GT machinery. And Tommy Milner leading over the team car, the 4-3 Corvette, and then the 911 Porsche of Patrick Pillet, the reigning class champion. And in GT Daytona, Brian Sellers continues to run out front in the Paul Miller Racing Audi. Jamie?
And the number 3 Corvette hit its marks. Antonio Garcia will stay behind the wheel. You see the crew member at the front of the car. If you've been following for a while, you know that's normally Dan Binks over the wall. It's first race, taking more of a managerial role. That's Tom now at the front. Tires is a very clean pit stop. Big round of applause down here at Corvette. Justin?
Yeah, the 912 Fueling just finished up the top lane of the pit lane. Of course, they have a lovely clean entrance into the pit stand, but then they have to deal with the traffic exit. The BMW, the number 100, actually got caught up behind its sister car, but made a clean exit in that M6. That is a lot bigger than last year's footprint when you look at it compared to the Z4. But the 25 right now, new tires going on. It's at a really weird angle in the pit lane, guys. I don't know if our cameras can pick that up, because obviously it's a busy pit lane when all the cars come in, and if you don't hit your marks, you're forced to take a strange position, and right now it's pretty tough for him to get out.
Yeah, and JB, in fact, what happened on the previous BMW pit stop, they had a problem, and I think Jonathan Edwards actually clipped some pit equipment because of the car. Like you said, it's a bigger footprint. It's harder to get in and out of the pit box, and when everyone comes in together, the drivers are obviously struggling with that today.
Calvin, I don't know, you can see, look at the tension on that fueling hose there. That is absolutely at the maximum. That is not ideal. They did try and shift it around a bit, but you know, it's not designed to be at that full extension. As he goes out, those tires spinning the wheels as he leaves the pit lane and rejoins the pit
there behind the wheel.
Absolutely. So just making sure he's ready to get back into combat here. And while we continue under this full course caution, we're going to step away from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Beautiful evening upon us. In just 3 weeks, the Great American Race returns here to Daytona to the Motorsports Stadium. Don't miss the Daytona 500, Sunday, February 21st, only on your local Fox affiliate. Don't want to miss that one. And we've got something very special that we want to share with you here. It's a feature that we're going to be calling this season Continental Tire for What You Do. And it's to recognize activities away from the racetrack. And this Tuesday, IMSA drivers, team owners, friends, and family visited Camp Boggy Creek for IMSA Day. Founded by Paul Newman, Camp Boggy Creek, it's a camp for kids with serious illness. And the proud charity of IMSA allows kids to experience camp activities in a medically safe environment. Now, during IMSA Day, attendees participated for the first time in paddle boat racing. And, of course, visited with campers and their families, exercised a bit before dinner, gathered around a campfire for some fun, and I'm pretty sure a good time was had by most. by all here.
It got ugly in a hurry here. Watch this, Matt Plum.
Yeah.
Not happening.
Yeah, and Eric Kern, world-class driver. Jazzercise, not so much. But that's okay. He knows what he's good at here. And that's the infield here, talking about s'mores and the like. I think there are people out here that are cooking them up, fires out in the infield. It's just a very special environment here at Daytona. At nighttime, and it's really great. Watch the cars in the track and then wander through that infield and just hear the laughter and the fun of the campers sitting around the campfire. Pretty good stuff. And it looks to me like we might have lights out on our pace car, indicating we are going back to green this time by, as we sit now at just about coming up on 4 hours into this 24-hour race, about a minute and a half shy of that at this point.
And Jonathan Bomarito will lead the field back to green with number 55 Mazda-powered prototype entry. And he didn't really walk into this one. He pitted just a couple of laps before, so this is legit. I mean, this Mazda-powered prototype machine is going to be the real deal this year, and I'm sure there's a lot of very smiley faces down there in the Mazda camp. They've had so much success here over the years. Obviously, 25 years ago, they celebrated that awesome win at the Le Mans 24-hour race.
I mean, the best lap time in that car, a 140.456, and only a few other cars have dipped below that. Only 3, I think, have gone into the 139. So, I mean, it's right there on pace, isn't it?
Yeah, and as Brian mentioned before, it's an older style prototype P2 machine, and it generates a lot of downforce by running low to the ground, which you can do here at Daytona. How it does at Sebring will probably be a bit more of a compromise in terms of the performance, but great to see this crew, so much talent, their talented driver lineup to be running back at the front of the pack where they belong.
It certainly seems to be pretty slippery as well, which I think certainly at this track is going to play to its strengths, as you said. So Bomarito in the Mazda will lead the Corvette DP from Action Express, Johnny Adam, and the Corvette DP from Wayne Taylor Racing to the line. That's your top 3, followed by McMurray and Brendan Hartley in the 2 Ford Chip Ganassi Racing entries. GT Le Mans, it'll be Tommy Milner in the number 4, his teammate Garcia in the 3, then the Porsche Patrick Poulet, a huge stack up.
I think that was the number 5. It looks like the Action Express car maybe suddenly got a run, and everyone's stacked up. Cannot pass until you get the green flag. You see Bomarito there stepping back out of it. He didn't want to run afoul of the rule there. And look at this, a run by, is that the 02 of Jamie Mack?
I believe it is.
Wow, he goes back to the overall lead.
And
the
underneath
55
him,
get pushed out. Max Angelelli goes with him.
Well, that was that little checkup when he got too quick up alongside that Corvette.
Class leader can lead you back to green, and this is why Jamie McMurray gets in. Cold tires, that was a mistake. Forced the issue there and didn't have the grip in the tires to make that move.
Remember, folks, that is the car that won it last year, and this is dicey field streaming by.
He's got to wait. He's just got to wait. Because if he tries to move and someone's committed to the outside, he's going to get clipped.
Got one more.
And I can only imagine what it's like for him in the car, because I got a little tight in the chest here watching that here. Let's watch it again, Cal.
Watch this. He tries to look to the inside of Tommy Milner, and he doesn't have the grip in the front end of the car, so he slides in, gets a little clip on the bodywork. That turns him. Angelelli and Bomarito go around him, as does Johnny Adam in the 31-wheeler machine.
You know what? I think we just saw the experience of Max Angelelli. He was able to read that and saw what was coming and was able to check up just enough to get around to the outside.
Now, you could make this move on hot tires, but right now, Jamie Mack just dives it down to the inside. Watch the front end just washes straight out. He can't hold the apex. Then he gets clipped by the Corvette. That turns him. And Angelelli just takes the high line and gets around him.
Yeah, he read that absolutely beautifully. Watched what was unfolding in traffic. So now the question becomes, it wasn't a hard hit, but you still have to be concerned about any potential damage to that machine as we have a look here now at the 72 of Andrea Bertolini.
Yeah, I think the bodywork may have been damaged there, Greg, on the 02. Looked like the front fender was askew.
Yep. Riding on board with the 60 Mike Shank machine in the hands of Olivier Pla. Boy, few people faster in the world than than Olivier.
He is unbelievable. Of course, going to be part of the Ford Chip Ganassi racing team over in the World Endurance Championship. That was announced a few weeks ago, and he'd already had a deal in place for this race through his connections with Ligier to run here at the 24-hour race. So Chip has got him for the season, but he's running against him with this prototype car here this weekend. So what's kind of cool this year, I mean, you got a couple of the Audi stars running for Corvette. You know, people are willing to loan guys out for this all-star race.
Oh, look at Pla right now. trying to stream the outside, and I'm mighty impressed with how deep that Corvette got down. That new aero on those cars is pretty spectacular, isn't it?
It really is, and just those GTLM cars get so much mechanical grip through these slow speed corners. They're certainly a match for the prototypes. Get up here on the high banks, and there's about 15 miles an hour, 10 to 15 miles an hour terminal speed difference between the two classes. Look at the traffic here, heading down into the brake zone for turn 6. Tires should just be coming up. Obviously, the conditions are cooling off right now, so when you go back to green, you just got to be super careful. And I think that's what caught Jamie Mack out. He just kind of pushed it in the inside there and couldn't get the car to turn. Mark Wilkins going up high there. He's up to the 4th spot in the defending series champions number 54 prototype challenge car from Core Autosport. And what they're doing is Mark is a silver graded driver, and John Bennett started the race, and there's a mandatory, the silvers have to do 5 hours drive time. So I think their strategy is to get those silvers in as much as they can in the early stages of this race, and then that gives them the free strategy towards the end.
All right, and if you may be noticing, if you're watching on a timing and scoring feed at home, you see the number 10 dropping. That's because Race Control did issue a drive-through for that pass under yellow. I agree. I think that was a matter of just a judgment call at the line, but that's what they said, and that's what's happening. And also, huge story here: the leader in the GT Daytona class, the Conrad Motorsports Lamborghini, driven by Lance Wilsey, a stop and hold for 3:34, which essentially totals 2 laps for improper wave-by procedure. We've seen a few of those happen today, and they've been costly.
It sounds severe, but basically you're giving back a lap that you gained.
Yes.
And then you're giving them another lap penalty. So it's not a 2-lap penalty, really. It's 1 lap on top of the lap you gained.
Yeah, it sounds worse than it is, but it's still bad.
It's a long time.
It absolutely is, no question. But up front, as we are watching our 3rd place car, the 31 of Johnny Adam, it is Jonathan Bomarino in the Mazda. Milner continues to lead in GTLM. Welcome back to Daytona. The lights fully ablaze here for the Rolex 24. It's such a great time of night here to really just let these cars go. Obviously, it's lit more than it used to be, but it is still a great challenge. And talking to the guys earlier that were talking about driving at night, I remember when Jeff Brabham broke the track record at Sebring in the middle of the night, and I asked him, how do you do that? And he said, well, when it's dark, all of the references of speed that give you that sensation of fear or whatever go away, and you can just zone in. And that's what these guys love to do. And speaking of guys who love driving race cars, Lawson Aschenbach is with Jamie Howe.
And Lawson, coming into the series this year, Stevenson making the step up to GDT with this new Audi platform. What has this process been like?
It's been amazing. Audi's been fantastic. It's helping us out. You know, it's obviously a pretty big transition from the GS car to a GTD car, and there's a lot to learn. But they've been instrumental in helping us kind of make that transition very smooth. You know, the car's a blast to drive. I'm having a lot of fun in it. It's very driver friendly, which is kind of a shock. And you know, you kind of understand the whole Audi system. Like, their customer support program is very high. It's pretty incredible, the people that they bring, the engineering staff, the physios, the doctors, the hospitality. I mean, they bring the full board to help us out. And it's such an important race to so many people, and obviously very important to us. So we're doing well. We're very happy with the car, and just kind of fighting along.
It seems like there's been a bit of a rejuvenation this year in the GTD class, especially with the new GT3 platform. What's it been like for you as a driver and the atmosphere building up to the race?
Well, it's been great driving the cars. They're a lot of fun. There's a lot of downforce. They brake very well. They handle very well. You know, Continental Tire does a great job with the tires. And it just makes the racing fun. I feel like we're driving race cars again, you know, and we're so used to sliding around, not having a lot of aero, this and that, whatever. But this platform, the whole GT3 platform all around the world, is just such a fun place to race. And you got to thank everybody at the FIA and IMSA and everybody that's been a part of this transition for doing such a great job of bringing in some fantastic cars and ones that the fans like to see and can sort of associate with.
Well, Matt's running well right now, up to 4th at the moment. Robin just got out. What's the plan for the nighttime?
Well, I guess I'll be going in next, and then we'll kind of start our cycle over again with Andrew, Robin, Matt, and myself again. But, you know, we're kind of just biding our time. It's 24 hours. It's a long race. It's a very tough race. You really got to be there at the end. So Matt right now is doing a great job. He kind of got the short end of the stick this weekend. He hadn't really turned a lap pretty much other than till now. So he's doing a fantastic job. I'm kind of being a little patient, a little cautious, as we all are. And I know he'll bring it in a good spot. Then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lawson Aschenbach, one of the great guys, no question about it. And you know, this is what we talked about at the top of the show with GT Daytona. I mean, listen to this right now. You got a Lamborghini leading, a Viper in second, an Aston Martin in third. You've got the Audi in fourth. It's unbelievable. And speaking of unbelievable, we've got a great battle at the front here in the prototype division as Olivier Pla and Jonathan Bomarito, kind of accordions in and out of traffic and the like. But these two guys are running virtually identical lap times and really putting on a show. That last time, though, Bomarito got hung up just a little bit, I think, in some traffic. Yeah, Pla's now out front in the number 60 car. So they dodged a bit of a bullet when John Pugh ran at the back of the 2 car in a stack up in the chicane earlier in terms of no damage and no penalty. And this is how the lead changed here on the front straightaway. That Honda power has been very impressive here today with both the 60 machine and the number 2, of course, that led a bunch of laps in the early going. Yeah, and this power plant is not the one that they've been running in the car in the past, and obviously they got it right. Oh, they did. It's been boosted from 2.8 liters up to 3.5. That's made a huge difference in terms of the torque off the corners. They really feel they compete not only with other P2 configuration cars, but also the Daytona prototypes for the season. They're going to be tough. And so as we watch here, Jonathan Bomarito now running in the second spot. And let's get back and talk a little bit about GT Le Mans. Let's get back and talk a little bit about Corvettes. And let's get back and talk to one of the legends in Corvette racing over the years, Justin Bell, Ron Fellows.
Ron Fellows, a man that really should have his face etched in rock along with those other chaps on that mountainside. Ron, do you know 15 years ago you and I finished second here by the smallest of margin, didn't we? Right behind the Viper. And that, of course, was the beginning of an amazing era. I got fired, but you went on to amazing success. It's so cool to see how this team has just kept the pace, and now with increased competition.
Yeah, you know what? You know, the strength of the Corvette team has been, you know, that the breakout year for us really was 2001. And since then, obviously, we got the overall win in 01, got our first Le Mans class win. And it's been an incredible ride since then for Corvette racing with multiple Le Mans wins, et cetera, and championships. So, but you know what? There's a lot of great energy here in 2016. Great grid of cars, so it's a new year. You know, we're here at the Rolex 24 at an absolute magic track, and good to be here.
I'm sure that Ron actually probably has a bow tie tramp stamp somewhere because he's such a Corvette guy. But you've got to multiple places. But you've got to face it. This competition, to see these brands come in here, it's just blown this GTLM and GTD category off, I think, anyone's expectation.
Oh, you know, it's really exciting, and I'm a fan. You're a fan. You know, we made a living at it, but we're also race fans first. And you know, to see the quality of the grids and how competitive it is, it's fantastic. And with my track co-owners hat on, we're looking forward to this whole bunch coming in July to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So it's exciting. I'm excited as a fan.
Yeah, it's lovely talking to Ron, but in the old days, you used to be going for a mineral water with a little bit of a special additive to make you fast. Now you can go and have a Cabernet. It's a much better form of racing, right?
Yes, we'll be fast asleep at 2 in the morning. Yes,
guys.
I'll tell you what, that speaks to how popular Ron Fellows is in North America, to have him suggested to put his face on the side of Mount Rushmore being a Canadian. That says a lot about how special he is. And he truly was. There is no question about it. And, you know, he made a great decision way back when, because he was also involved when that Cadillac prototype program came on board. And when the Corvette came on, they gave him the choice, and he went, I've got unfinished business with Corvette. What a great choice that ended up being. Well, when you want to stay with a team that's competed in 170 races and has 97 victories out of those, I mean, Doug Feehan and his whole group have done a tremendous job since Corvette racing got into this sports car business. As we ride on board with Antonio Garcia in the number 3 Chevy Corvette that won here last year. And, you know, there are all kinds of different sounds in racing and engine notes, but for a large number of fans, this is the one right here. Let's just enjoy and ride here. The magic sound of a V8 Chevrolet Corvette at full song. Oh yeah, baby. We're going to step away for just a minute. We will be back as traffic continues to be the challenge. Welcome back to Daytona, where the two Corvettes running 1-2 in class in the GT Le Mans category, as they come around and work their way through the famous tri-oval here at the Motorsports Stadium of Daytona International Speedway. Ooh,
that was tight.
That was tight. And I'm pretty sure that car did not recognize that that number 4 car was going to make that move, and eventually gave him the room, certainly, but awfully close. But that's what this is going to be like for the entirety of this race when you start mixing up these different classes.
Absolutely. And once again, Corvette to the fore here. I mean, they won here last year, won the 2 opening rounds of the championship. They know how to get the job done. We talk about all the new cars with the Ford, the BMW, and the Ferrari. As we said in the open, Greg, you still have to go out and beat Porsche and beat Corvette. And right now it's a Porsche 1-2 and the a Corvette 1-2, and the Porsche sits in the 3rd spot.
I think another great story is the car that sits 4th in GT Le Mans right now, of course, is David Rigon. But these two Corvettes, that was the Risi car, by the way, but these two Corvettes, I mean, they are in lockstep, and they've just opened up that bit of a margin. And it's now, what, about 8 seconds back now between those guys. So, I mean, they're having a very solid run. Michael Christensen right now sits 3rd in the number 912, but again, seconds back of these two Corvettes.
Yeah, he's the other Danish Christensen who's very quick. We visited with Tom earlier today, and Mad Mike, as we like to call him, is doing a great job in the number 912.
Spelled differently, though.
It is, but I'm sure when he's making a reservation,
it works.
To you for Christensen. No problem, sir. We have a table for you.
There goes the number 912. Rigon, and then the 100 of Lucas Luhr. That is, of course, from the BMW Rahal Letterman Lanigan camp. Sits right now in the 5th spot, and it's been an eventful race for those guys as well. As we hop on board, that's the sister car, the number 25, which is back a few more spots. Luhr rides in 5th, and right now the 25 in the hands of Bruno Spengler sits in the 8th spot. And Bruno is one of those BMW works drivers.
Yeah, he won the DTM championship a handful of years ago, and is just a great driver. I think this is only his 3rd ever 24-hour race. He competed here last year. They finished 2nd by a few tenths of a second, so we'd love to go one better. Real character, really nice guy. Spent a few events over in the DTM championship just observing, got to know Bruno, and really a great guy, just a nice guy to have a coffee with, have a chat. He loves racing, loves golf, and just a really talented man.
Right up your alley there. If you love racing and golf.
Long coming.
I'll tell you, this is a great battle. It's for 6, which tells you how intense it is with the 911 of Patrick Pellet. The 72 is Andrea Bertolini. And they are coming up on the back of one of the, I think that's the number 16 Change Racing car. And then right behind them, you have that number 25 of Spengler. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th.
This is intensifying. There you see one of the Fords in the mix, been running some really quick laps, and many laps down with the gearbox issues on both cars. So a few gremlins, and is it a surprise? I think it is, because they've done a lot of miles in testing with this Ford GT, and it's really been problem-free. So I spoke to Chip the other day, and he just said, you never know, man. He said, this is racing. It's been going well, but this is a race. What will happen? And sure enough, in the first couple of hours, suddenly they saw some issues they hadn't seen in several thousand miles of testing.
Well, and it really does point out that you could test, but until you're out on the track and really slamming the curbs and racing with people, you just really ultimately don't know, do you?
You don't, and they did a long endurance test at Sebring, and if any track is going to punish a race car at Sebring, I mean, teams like Audi, who don't even race there anymore, still come to Sebring to prove the durability, the endurance factor of their race cars. So it's the ultimate test bed, and they did that and pounded around, and the cars were really, really strong. So they worked a little bit on the braking performance of the car during the early testing. Couldn't quite get the balance right and the feel for the drives, but outside of that, it's really been strong, and I think everyone was really bullish. They knew it was early days. They thought, you know, we haven't really practiced our pit stops and driver changes to the extent we'd like to, but in terms of the car and how well it should run and be durable, they felt good, and that has not been the case here today.
Back on board with Spengler, looking forward at the number 72 Ferrari from SMP Racing.
It's funny, when he was over here at the test a few weeks ago, it was when the lottery was like whatever it was, over $1 billion. He was buying tickets. He was totally into it.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
That sets you up for life. I think he's got a pretty good spot in life right now, driving one of these machines. And that SMP Ferrari, that Andrea Bertolini, of course, a very accomplished driver, and maybe not really a surprise to see that team running this strongly.
No, it's a great group. Bertolini is a Ferrari/Maserati Works driver, and just a lot of talent. I mean, the talent lineup this year, Greg, I don't think has ever been better. I mean, we've had a lot of superstars from other disciplines from the NASCAR world, maybe more of those names here in the past. But in terms of road racing and the quality of the field, this is the best we've ever seen.
Yeah, global stars in the sport. I don't think there's any question about that. And of course, this is the team. They're really doing double duty, fielding this car in GT Le Mans, fielding that number 37 prototype in the prototype ranks. Maurizio Mediani right now driving that car, sitting back in the 9th position. But this Ferrari is the one that is in the wars right now and really having a good run. And they are coming up on the back of I think that's one of the Conrad machines, the Lamborghini Huracans. Dips the brake a little bit. And these two are going to just sweep around the outside. It's the number 28.
Yeah, they've dropped back a little bit in the order. I mean, of course, you've got to rotate all your drivers through. Some are pros, some are pro-ams in the two classes, PC and GTD. You have to have a mix. Essentially, you have to have at least 2 silver-graded drivers or bronze-rated drivers, which essentially means they shouldn't earn their living driving race cars, but there's a bit of a gray area, and there's a lot more guys in that category who are graded silver who do, in fact, earn a check when they drive a race car. But even so, there's a real grading system to that, and it's all about putting the makeup of that squad together to be the most efficient it can be in terms of giving you the performance and potential to win the race.
That's what they continue to say. One of those valuable commodities in motorsports is a fast silver driver. But you know,
good silver is golden, right?
Exactly, and I often wonder if the argument about that, when you're talking about making your living in racing, is yes, I get paid to race, but it's nowhere near the living I'm accustomed to. So I've got to be silver, right? Boy, it is interesting. It's so different to see these BMWs now with this new platform that they're running here after seeing the Z4 for so many years. But boy, it is special indeed. Now, we did, of course, have that huge incident with the Delta Wing. The crew seems to be thrashing away at it. Justin, what's the progress?
Yeah, they're thrashing away. There's a big crowd gathered. Of course, the trouble with this car is it is incredibly efficient, and with efficiency often is caused by lightweight and the maximization of design. And you can see the front whole nose assembly there. They just took the old one off. It was not looking good. There's damage to the left rear as well. You can see down on the floor to your right that there's I believe that was the front left wheel with the whole brake assembly and everything. This is, I mean, this car has undergone a lot of damage, but actually they're going to put it back together. It's just, if you think of racing cars, especially ones that are more prototype in design, they're very modular. So as long as you don't affect the basically the integrity of the carbon fiber tub, everything else can fall off it, and that is what they're repairing right now. I mean, they're going as fast as they can, but you know, we've never really seen, Cal, I don't think, the Delta Wing have damage, get it repaired, and back out. But I think that's the indication of how strong and motivated they are by the way they were performing out there. So big crowd out watching this car being put back together, and hopefully they'll get on track, because everyone's given them good sort of support this week.
Yeah, great group there. There you see Young Sean Rahal just digging in, giving all the crew a pat on the shoulder, some support. Hey, let's get it back out there, boys, and see what we can do. But a devastating blow. Just really disappointment for Andy Merrick, who was behind the wheel at the time. See Andreas Werthe, he's the 4th driver on the squad this weekend. You know him well, Greg, from the Atlantic days. Real talent behind the wheel.
Tremendous talent behind the wheel. Great opportunity for him, and it's got to be a treat for that car. Speaking of treats, how about this number 11? That is the car that our defending GT Daytona champs are driving. Jamie?
Yeah, and it's a car that we really had some big hopes for. They've turned some of the fastest times in the class, but now they're 17 laps down from the GTD class leader. And the issue that they did have and that they're having again is in the wiring harness from the steering wheel to the race car. They thought that maybe it was the steering wheel itself, but what Bill Sweedler was telling him when he was just behind the wheel was that he cannot change gears if he is not going in a straight line. So the team is going to go ahead, they're going to put a new steering wheel in, they're going to change out the wiring, see if that helps, but they may have to go back to the garage. So a little bit of teething issues for O'Gara Motorsports today.
Thanks very much, Jamie. And I think that last fix was something on the order of 20 minutes that they spent. So hopefully it won't take that long to get this one going again. And while they're working on that, the Delta Wing continues to work away as well, and we're going to step away for just a moment.
Fast sports cars are an aspiration for us all, but by the time the GT cars make it out on racetrack, they're somewhat unattainable for most of us, but not the Ford GT if you are in the right income bracket. And Raj Nair, right now your title is VP of Product Development and many other things, but this really has been one of the passions of the last few years of your life. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, right. A Ford GT is always going to be a passionate product. But the 50th anniversary of our win at Le Mans, our win at Daytona, is something we really wanted to celebrate. So being able to do a street car of the GT that's as close as a GT endurance racer as you can get is the topping of the cake, icing on the cake.
And of course, there's a lot of technology of transfer between the road car to the race car to the road car. Go into that a little bit.
Well, because we designed the street car and the race car at the same time, we were able to come up with a lot of the same solutions. So whether it's the EcoBoost engine, the 3.5 V6 twin turbocharged direct injection, carbon fiber tub, the really extreme aerodynamics you can see on the car, you know, all of that is common with the race car. So as a percent of the vehicle that's the same as what's on the racetrack, it's a very high percentage for the street car.
Of course, you mentioned aero. On the race car, it is blown up to an extreme within the regulations, but seeing that car out on track, a Ford GT actually took the lead at the Rolex 24 in its first ever outing. That must have felt amazing to you, and of course, this is a family business, so I saw Henry Ford out there. What a moment.
Yeah, the whole family's very proud, whether it's the Ford family or all of our employees, that we were able to show some speed and be running up front early on in the race. It's a long race, as we know, but the fact that the car has shown it's got the legs, we're really pleased with the performance so far.
Well, and of course, problems right now, once again, as we have seen how that number 67 and the number 66 have had some of those, I think, well put, teething problems. And this car, since it's been back out and running, Cal, has been running very, very quickly.
It really has. I think Ryan Briscoe may have set the fastest lap of the race in the GTLM category, so it's shown pace, and just these little niggly problems, they've got to work their way through. A lot of testing, but this 24-hour race will now become a test session for them, and obviously they'll try and gain as many positions as they can to score some points. They're looking at the big picture of the championship. I know they wanted success their first time out, but there's a lot of other milestones they're going to try and reach this year as well.
Without doubt, and there's the number 98, by the way, and it has just been called for a drive-through for spinning its wheels while it was up on the jack. So that's something that continues to be something that a number of teams seem to be dealing with here. And while the car does its drive-through, I think Jamie is with one of the co-drivers. We've talked about famous names here, and this one is Matthias Lauda.
Yeah, so Matthias just got out of the car, so it's Pedro Lamy who was in the car when that penalty did occur, but you're exhausted. You look like, how physical of a race is this for you behind the wheel of the Aston Martin?
No, it's very tough because I was just doing a double stint and it was quite long, and all the time I was in a fight for position with the Dodge in front of me. So it was good. The car fits all right. So far, race is quite clean. Yeah, we don't have major problems, and hopefully we can keep going. Don't make any mistakes, and the last 4 hours is the most important part. Now we need to survive, don't lose too much time, but so far it looks quite all right.
With all of the races that you've been privileged enough to go to as a spectator and as a driver, where does the 24 hours of Daytona rank?
Yeah, for me, it's one of the toughest races of the season because it's always traffic, so like you can never rest. For example, in Le Mans, you have very long straights and the field is really spread. Here the field is always packed together, so all the time you're always fighting for position and you have to watch out the traffic from behind. It's very intense, so you can never rest.
Very intense, that's a good way to put it, thank you.
You know, Cal, he brings up a good point. Yeah, we've got the banking here that you can get up and run around the outside of a slower car, but we have 54 cars starting here at just a little over 3.5 miles. You have 55 cars, maybe 56 starting at Le Mans that's over 8 miles. I mean, that means a whole different level of traffic you're dealing with.
It really does. The traffic intensity is certainly a lot more extreme because of the length of the racetrack, and then you add to that, you got that 1 mile infield section here. That's where it gets really hairy, as we've seen already today, in terms of having 4 classes running together through that section of the racetrack is really, you know, you got to be on your toes. You got to be very patient, but sometimes the luck may just go against you and you're going to be involved with someone.
Talking about depth in the talent behind the wheel here. I mean, you take a look at this car, the Aston Martin Racing entry. 2 Aston Martin Vantages racing here. This one from Aston Martin Racing, the other one from Kevin Buckler's The Racers Group Aston Martin Racing program. We saw the drive-through with the speed limit required in the pits. What's the delta? What's the penalty, essentially, would you guess?
You're going to lose about 30 seconds coming down pit lane at 60 kilometers an hour versus staying out on the racetrack at full speed. So then plus any servicing, if it's a regular pit stop, as a penalty, a drive-through, it will just be that 30 seconds. If it's a stop and go more, and if it's stop and hold, you just add all that together. So, you know, you just got to be cool. I mean, you can't afford to be having these penalties. We haven't had a lot of cautions. Typically under a caution, if you can get a wave by and you're in the right place, maybe you can get one of those laps back. But if you just, if you have those penalties late in the race, that's when it can really hurt you badly.
Well, they got that one done early. That's the good news. Now, here is a good story that's developing. This is second place in GT Daytona. It's the number 23 Team Seattle, Alex Job Racing Porsche of Mario Fahnbacher. And the guy that is chasing him right now in the number 33, Garage Monkey Viper from Riley, guess who? Dominic Fahnbacher. The brothers are at it.
That's pretty cool.
That is.
Fun characters. TK Tommy Kendall was teammates with Dominic for a while in the Viper days, and Dominic's just always got a big smile on his face. Really gets the job done behind the wheel, and Mario and Ian James have really been a force to be reckoned with in the GTD ranks for the last couple of years. So that 23 squad is going to be tough this year. Alex Riberas may in fact be doing more of a full-time role there. Spoke to Ian James last week and he said we're still determining our regular driver lineup, but they've got a great pool of talent to work from.
Absolutely, and here is a look there, a quick look there at the 007 Aston Martin that we were alluding to. That's James Davison, who is back at it here at Daytona once again. Phenomenal action in all of the classes. We're going to step away for a moment, but here are your 4 class leaders. Welcome back to Daytona as you ride on board with Jonathan Bomarito in the Mazda. While we were in break, both he and the race leader, Olivier Pla, pitted, but for Bomarito, a problem after the stop, Cal.
Yeah, there was. Look to your left there, and you'll see that the left side door is loose, and I don't know if this distracts Jonathan a little bit as he's leaving pit lane. See, it's starting to lift a little bit. Now he's on cold tires, obviously, and as he goes down into the brake zone for turn 3, this leaves it a little bit too late. Straight on, no grip in those tires. It's a lot cooler now, right? And he just misses the tire wall. So, you know, again, when it's cold tires, Greg, you just miss your mark by a little bit. Suddenly it's too much, you can't recover it. So, not trying to make an excuse for him. He went off on cold tires, but certainly that door is an issue for him.
Finally able to get it latched, it seems, because the last time we saw he was at speed. Here's a look at it from the outside. It's open.
Yeah.
I can understand that being a bit of a distraction. They gathered up. Here is Johnny Adam in the pits in the number 31 Whelen Engineering Action Express Corvette DP, who's just been absolutely impressive here at Whelen.
I mean,
winner.
He's done a stunning job. I mean, the pace has been great, and previous winners of the Sunoco Award, Phil Keane, Bradley Smith, and Felipe Nazaire, who's a Formula 1 driver right now. Jamie?
The 48 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini made its way to pit lane. They are doing a driver change, so Brian Sellers getting out of the car. His full season co-driver Madison Snow will be getting into the car. This driver change is something a little bit different, a little unique for them, not what they've been used to practicing. The way it's going to go the rest of the season, it'll be Madison Madison to Brian. Brian uses a seat insert, so it takes a little bit of extra time to get that seat insert out for the driver change. Nonetheless, though, very quick driver change complete. The door is shut while the fuel is still going in, so didn't cause them any extra time. Today, another car that just hit pit lane a couple seconds ago was the number 10. They lost a couple positions on that driver change, trying to get Rubens Barrichello strapped back in after Max Angelelli. Everyone has now left the pits.
I wonder why Jamie was patting the driver on the bum when he got out.
It was a great stop, as she pointed out. And let's not forget that that Paul Miller team, a little bit of an overshoot there is the 0-1, who has cycled around to the lead. Brendan Hartley, who has been throwing down some very impressive laps in that machine, comes into the pits as well. Talk about another stellar driver lineup.
Yeah, this is awesome. Andy Prio, Alex Wirtz, Brendan Hartley, the current world endurance champion, along with Timo Bernhard and Mark Webber, of course, running for Porsche. Jamie is in pit lane again.
It looks like a pretty standard stop for Ganassi, taking a little bit of time just to make sure all the air ducts are clean. They did give a new tear off on the windscreen, making sure that as the sun goes down, you know, you can see a lot more on that windshield at night. So it's nice and clean now. Fuel for New Continentals is out.
All credit to Lance Stroll as well, the young man who's the fourth driver in that car. He's done a really good job. His lap times are really impressive here today. A very young man, only 17 years old, and running over in the European Formula 3 Series. Had a win last year, and I think he's got a very bright future.
Yeah, and I mean, particularly when you compare what he's been doing to the reigning world endurance champion, I think the guy's got a future.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, he had that little moment at the test when he spun the car on cold tires, but all of that team just really, you know, grouped around him, said don't worry about it. He went back out, got immediately on the pace. It didn't phase him at all, and that's what experience does for you with that group there, particularly with Andy Prio. He said, yeah, he just made a mistake, no problem. We can need to get behind him. We've got a race to run here in 3 weeks, and they've done that to perfection.
Yeah, sometimes when you're that young and you go out and spin, it's almost a badge of honor. I mean, you know, the team takes it as, boy, he's giving his all. I remember Jack Baldwin when he was teamed with Scott Sharp and Trans Am very early in Scott Sharp's career. Jack was frustrated. He said, I just take something. They're all over me, but Scott goes out, spins and clobbers something, and they're like, attaboy, way to chase it. And Stroll, really, I think you're right, doing a superb job. As we're watching there, the number 5 in the hands now of Christian Fittipaldi, able to work by that 0-1, obviously, still trying to get some heat and pressure into those tires. And that's something as we watch this stop too, the number 62, Risica Pettazioni is in. Justin.
Yeah, there was the whole Ferrari team standing on the side of the box. They're ready to jump into action. They were calling him down the pit lane. Olivier Beretta, former teammate of mine, getting in behind the wheel. As you can imagine, this car, this team, so much experience at how to do well in these races. And that was pretty much a flawless driver change. They're now just waiting. Whoa, he just put it in gear, moved slightly before the refueling hose came off, but he departs without much further ado. Jamie?
Well, Justin, I mentioned Brian Sellers got out of the number 48 Lamborghini. Brian, considering how condensed this timeline has been, you guys just got parts delivered to the racetrack even this week. How surprised are you by the performance of this Lamborghini?
Well, I only caught every couple words of that, sorry. I mean, we did get parts late. We got the car a little bit late, but in terms of performance of the car, I don't think we're too terribly surprised. It's been successful in GT3 spec racing in Blancpain, so we had an idea that the car was going to be good. I think right now this track suits it very well. It's very slippery, it's very good aerodynamically. It's like a triangle compared to a lot of these other cars. You know, right now I think we look strong. It's always hard to tell where everyone else is at, but we're just going to keep doing our thing, hope it's good enough, and hope we can survive.
Coming into the race, you said the keys to doing well were going to be to managing traffic and managing yourselves. Now that the race has started, are those still the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always stays the same. You can kind of only control what you can do, and I think at the moment right now, we're just trying to run the same lap over and over again, and I think a lot of people are probably sitting back inside the paddock thinking that we have a whole lot more left, but we don't. That's kind of where we are, and we're trying to race and hopefully get the thing to the end.
There is still a lot of time left. Thank you.
I think the irony there is that Brian only listens to half of what Jamie says at home as well. So
that worked out.
Yeah,
absolutely. Boy, I'll tell you, that car and that team has been absolutely superb. And it's really not a surprise. I mean, you know, Brian was talking about the car being suited, but if you watch what they did last year with that Audi, obviously, they came very close to winning that championship. There were some great drives. The car had great pace, especially at certain tracks. And that team has really stepped it up.
Yeah, they got great engineers there, great team manager there with Mitchell, and they're going to do great things this year. This car is strong. I mean, it's, you know, there's a couple of cars that dipped into the 146 ranges, the 48 and the number 11, excuse me, the number 16. So that Huracan is really, really quick here at Daytona, at least. We'll have to wait and see what it does at Sebring. You know, that's the weird thing about this this championship. When you come to Daytona, it's so unique, Greg. It's like a diner with 2.5 miles on the banking here. So what works here may not work at the rest of the championship. So for the series to make too many adjustments after what they see here can be a mistake, because the rest of the championship configuration of the racetracks is so different.
Absolutely, and that's, I think, obviously, that's why there's almost sometimes a separate BOP and set of rules for this track. You have to do that. Watching here, the number 62, Larissa Competizione Ferrari. We just watched that stop. Davide Rigon turning over to Olivier Beretta, talking about going from strength to strength. And they're having a very solid run. And I'm sure, Justin, that Mr. Edwin Fennick, who's the CEO of Ferrari North America, really enjoying what he's seeing right now.
Yes, Edwin, we're just saying, for you to be here, it's a fantastic position for you with Ferrari North America, but also the introduction of the 488 here in North America, a very exciting time for Ferrari.
Very exciting, because first of all, it is the first time that this car will race, and we are racing here in Daytona in US. Second point, which is very important to us, new technology. We have a turbo inside. This is the first time that we introduce a turbo in a GT cars since the legendary F40. And so we are really looking to see the results of this car, especially that the technology on this car is very important, because we have the same technology on the road cars, and we are one of the manufacturers that need to test in the racing in order to transfer the technology in the road cars. Very important to us.
And of course, racing is the lifeblood for Ferrari engineering, but also for the customers. The customer loves to see Ferrari race, and especially in North America, correct?
Absolutely. I think that we are in Formula One, but here in US, we are very proud to be in a GT with IMSA here, Daytona being a legendary race where we perform very well for the years. This is very important to be here.
You can tell the enthusiasm for this brand and racing starts at the top, guys.
Well, no question about that. And I remember those F40s with the Fert brothers running those cars, and oh man, they were spectacular as well. So this is a great homage to that, running these cars right now. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in just a moment. Once again, it is Olivier Pla back in the lead overall here, leading in GTLM, Mike Rockenfeller, Corvette. Welcome back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, opening round of the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And another problem for the number 67 Ford GT from Ford Chip Ganassi Racing. This one just looks to be a cut tire on that right rear, and able to bring that car around and limp it into pit lane. Stefan Mucke behind the wheel right now. Crew over the wall and going to get after that fix with some urgency here. And it looks like that's one thing that those Michelin tires are just unbelievable at doing, is when you do get a cut tire of some sort, it doesn't flail and come apart and destroy the bodywork and the aero on the car. Somehow that carcass just hangs together until you can get it into the pit.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. We've seen it for so many years. I mean, you're going to cut tires down now and again, particularly at Mans. They have that very sharp gravel there. But Stefan Mucke behind the wheel. He's just in for this one race, as we understand it, and it's kind of a very unlikely driver pairing with Westbrook and Mucke sharing this car. We got some video of an event that happened at Silverstone. Here we're behind the wheel of Richard Westbrook. He tips Stefan Mucke around, who's driving for Aston Martin. Westy was one of the Nissan factory drivers. Then look what happens here. Retaliation by Stefan Mucke. Massive crash as Westbrook was limping along. There's been lone love lost between those two over the years since this incident. Stefan Mucke was actually banned for racing for a little while because of that retaliation. And then lo and behold, Westbrook gets the drive with Chip. Mucke gets one in WEC, and they bring Mucke over for this event. and stick them in the same car. I laughed about it with Michael Garrow, the team manager, and he said when I sold it to Westy, he just said, well, at least you can't hit each other if you're in the same car.
Exactly. But they just wish they could do the Delta Wing driver change, one out the other way, coming in, absolutely. And I mean, I don't think Muga ever meant to hit him. He just misjudged that, but it was still, I think, absolutely a somewhat crazy thing to do. And we've had this spin by the number 38. It's been one of the front-running cars in the Prototype Challenge class, third at the time when it happened. Brandon Godovic, very young talent behind the wheel, and I don't know if he got tipped there, Cal, or if he just got in too hot.
Yeah, I would think that he probably got a little nudge. Let's take another look at it. Oh no, he just lost it by himself.
Yeah.
38 car. He's only got a couple of laps on it, so maybe it could still be cool tires. Just caught him out with the brake bias there.
Is that a scenario where maybe if he'd had more experience, release the brake, just drive through, take the stop? But he's a talent, there's no question about it. But started his career in stock cars, but has developed a huge passion for road racing. We'll see more of him for sure. Under caution here at Daytona for the Rolex 24, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season opener, basically for the spin by the number 38 Prototype Challenge machine that kind of got hung up out there after that moment. The Performance Tech Motorsports car, in a sense, driven off, but also a bit of debris in that area. So they decided while they were under caution that they would do a little bit of cleanup in the bus stop. Of course, there is a bit of curb hopping that tends to happen down there, Cal, and every once in a while you just pull some stuff up into the race service. There is the number 3 Corvette, Mike Rockenfeller, behind the wheel, and one of the drivers who won here last year is standing by in pit lane.
And that's Antonio Garcia. Greg, Antonio, we were just talking about some of the updates to this car for this year. Aerodynamic stuff, some safety features, new Michelin tires. What's made the biggest difference for you guys as drivers?
I think mainly is the downforce. Although here at Daytona we can't feel it so much because the corners are not long enough. But I mean, everything seems to be more like a race car. I mean, we can brake deeper. I mean, speed is a tiny bit higher, and Michelin brought us also a little bit faster tires. So at the end, the overall package is more fun to drive.
We've been talking a lot about the new equipment in the GTLM category this year, the Fords, the new Ferraris, the new BMWs, updates for you guys. What's been the kind of the hype around entering the season for you?
Just hoping that our updates were good enough, basically. So, I mean, so far the Corvette team did a great job analyzing or using the rules and maximizing everything. And so far, I think the car is reacting to where it needs to be. So, still pretty early in the season to know where the other cars are able to go. But for sure, I mean, they all came with a new car, so it would be difficult to compete and fight against them. But for sure, we have the best team to. So I know they'll be very, very afraid of us.
I like that little smirk on your face as you say that. Thank you. Justin?
Here in the leading car at the moment, the 60 Michael Shank Racing. Mike, obviously you just said to me, keep steady. They're keeping steady. It's really there's a lot of pressure, but he's not rushing in the car. Is that the strategy right now?
It's absolutely the strategy. The Tire Kingdom Florida Lottery car is really, really good. And so we're going to conserve, we're going to save fuel, and try to keep everybody's head straight. That's the hardest part. We're we have almost 19 hours to go. A lot more to go. I like our chances, but we got to keep mistake-free, and that's the problem. We already hurt one nose already.
I mean, you say you got to keep straight, but I want to go back to that Florida lottery thing. Is that like, I mean, do we all have an insight into how to play and win? Is that the key for us?
The idea is if we win, everybody wins. If we win, everybody goes buys lottery tickets, and they're bound to have good luck then.
So talk to us quickly about Le Mans before you get on headset.
Oh yeah, I mean, huge opportunity for us this year with Honor Oak and Oak Racing, and we're going to get to do Le Mans. And it's a dream come true. It's a bucket list thing. It's a race like Monaco, Indianapolis 500, Daytona 500. I'm very, very lucky that our crew get to do it, and we get to do it this year, and we're super excited.
Perfect. Well, we'll let him get back to the job because there's a lot of work that goes on, as we know, Cal, behind the service to maintain a car in the lead, even if you're trying to keep the driver cool.
Yeah, tell Mike I'm really impressed with his French accent, the way he said Le Mans. He's working on it hard.
There will be no French accent coming from that. You know that's not going to happen any more than some of our crews.
We should tape him each month, Justin, as it gets closer and see how it changes.
Right. You can imagine. In fact, I think actually Greg does the best French accent, even though he doesn't know any French words.
This is correct, eh?
Michelin.
Exactly. And speaking of Frenchman, Olivier Pla right there. Boy, what a race he is putting on. And, you know, Mike talked about staying mistake-free. We had that one incident, and it was John Pugh behind the wheel, the non-pro, but they're going to Le Mans because of what John Pugh did last season, and that is a pretty special thing, winning that category that he did and got them the nod. Boy, what a pretty shot here. An absolutely beautiful sight here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The lights of the surrounding city, the lights of the infield, obviously from the carnival area as well, but the lights of the race cars up on the high bank coming into the tri-oval as we continue under caution here. And again, it's extended a little bit because they're doing a bit of cleanup on the track. Once they decided to go yellow, there were areas on the track that they thought, well, let's just clean it up and let these drivers be able to go after it and attack again with vigor. And here we go down into the pit lane as it is now open for the GT classes, and leading them in is the number 33 Gas Monkey Garage Riley Motorsports Dodge Viper. Wanted to make sure we got that one right, with the pole sitting car, the number 73 Park Place machine right behind it. That car, Cal, has had a little bit of some problems and a couple of costly penalties, but they've worked their way back into the top 10 with Patrick Lindsay now behind the wheel.
Yeah, they got a really good driver lineup here for this race, so I think they're going to be a factor not only for this 24-hour win, but for the championship as well. So this new Porsche looks like it's a good tool to try and win this championship again this year. And you want to get off to a good start, particularly with the depth of competition in GTD. You can't afford to have any poor races, so getting out of the box strong is really important. Now we're looking at the WeatherTech entry, similar Porsche. They're going to be tough as well. Lee Keane, Cooper McNeil going to be the driver lineup for the season. Got Shane Van Gisbergen in there this week. He's a stud in the Aussie V8 Supercar Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just another great lineup. Of course, Alex Shield Racing ordered the first two of the new GT3 Porsches that we're going to be running here in North America. And as we're watching the GT field complete its stops, we got one of the guns in the prototype category. One of the defending champions of this race is standing by with Jamie.
Hey, how's it going? Yep, we're down here in the Ganassi.
I didn't recognize you with that hair.
You didn't recognize me with the hair. Oh, no.
It's a
lot of hair this year.
Yeah, you know what? It's in tribute to some of our broadcast team that obviously are follically challenged. Yes. So I do it for me. Hey, mate, you had a really good run out there. What's the track like as it's getting cold?
Well, obviously on the hardest thing to me for the NASCAR guys that come here, cold tires and cold brakes, it's just so hard because we don't have that. Our cars have the most grip on cold tires, and the brakes work the best when they're cold. And it's so hard on those restarts to predict how hard you can push. And then it's amazing that the brakes just don't stop. It's not that the pedal gets long, it's just there's no braking power. But our car is better than I expected. The P2 cars are still the fastest cars, but I feel like we could maintain fairly well there. So get through the night. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
So, you know, when drivers like Boris said and Ron Fellows have come over to do cup racing and do it on the road courses, their thing has always been, my God, those NASCAR guys try and go by you everywhere. I mean, as in, it's not, oh, let's set up for turn 5. When it comes to this, there is a sort of certain etiquette and patience to it. How is that for you to adapt? Because they don't go by everywhere here, do they?
I don't know. I thought it was pretty wild on the start. I don't know who was I don't know all of the drivers, and I'm not sure who was in front of me. But they kind of door slammed each other, and I thought that I was going to have a hole then, and I didn't. And I ended up banging tires or doors. I guess you call them doors on these. But I don't know. I thought it was somewhat similar. The other thing that is a challenge is you don't know where the restart zones are. I couldn't see the restart zone, and then in our cars you kind of get an idea of the transmission and how it's going to accelerate and how you time out a restart. I had honestly no idea right there. You're just trying not to get into the guy in front of you.
Well, you can get some rest now and eat some food, and I'm sure Ganassi catering's pretty good, so we'll leave you alone, Jamie. As the lights are out on the pace car, as the field makes its way around to take the green end. What a nice guy. Makes you want to make a hero out of these people, doesn't it?
He doesn't need a lot of help with that, but absolutely it does. Just an absolutely great group for sure. And we are going back to green here as we are now 5 hours, 12 minutes into this one.
Look at that.
Leading.
What a sight.
Scrum.
And literally on the restarts, unlike the initial start, you can pass soon as it's green. 5 car taking it deep in there. Christian Fittipaldi now behind the wheel, defending series champions from Action Express.
Yeah, 31 of Adam running a wide line, trying to move around, but I think he may have actually lost a couple of spots here on that restart. And as that traffic down into turn 1, then into the International Horseshoe is fierce. And up front, boy, checking it out. Olivier Claw has just wasted no time in moving away from this field. By the way, some really, really sad news. We get a report the Delta Wing is officially retired. The damage just too deep.
Yeah, they were trying to work hard on changing that front nose box to get the car back out there. Steph Chisel and all the boys from Delta Wing will be bitterly disappointed. They had a great car here and a great run in the early going, and great insight from Jamie Mack, though, in terms of what he's used to. And he admitted, I just got caught out. Expect the car to start more, had more grip in the tire, more grip in the brake, and it just wasn't there.
Back on board with that number 55 Mazda, still Jonathan Bomarito behind the wheel, watching him work some traffic here up on the high banks.
This is awesome stuff. Great pictures from the onboard. This is the tricky one, just timing how many cars you can get inside down in this brake zone, because sooner or later they have to turn in, and particularly when there's a gaggle of them, you're just trying to thread yourself back into the hole.
And back up again. Wow, that is just phenomenal here. By the way, we get a report to 33, stop plus 60 for running the red light at pit out. Dominic Farnbacher doing that in that number 33 machine. That's going to be a hit, as they were up in the top 3 at the completion of that stop.
Wow, what pictures these are. This is awesome stuff.
Here's the tricky part.
Yeah, that transition at the best of times is really difficult there, and you see Jonathan getting really wide there. He's probably got some traffic to his inside. He's going on the high line. There's the penalty for Farnbacher that he's serving. Screen left.
You know, you talk about it's 30 seconds or so from pit in to pit out, but you lose speed when you have to drop down to the apron. You lose speed accelerating back out, so it's a little bit more than that. It looked like he was heading into the pits.
Yeah, you can't do any service if you're serving a penalty, so we'll have to wait and see what was going on there.
Yeah.
If he does do any service, he's going to have to come back through again.
Maybe he just angled early for the penalty box. That certainly is a possibility here, as we're on board here with the number 3 Corvette. After the stops, Mike Rockenfeller sits 4th.
Yeah, he dropped a couple of spots. The Porsches have come up to speed really quickly in these cooler conditions. Fred Macavecchi leads from Nick Tandy. They were the starting drivers, of course, this afternoon. Graham Rahal doing a great job in the number 100, celebrating 100 years for BMW. And it's a pretty cool color scheme. We'll see that. It's got that day glow kind of spider pattern on that number 100 machine, and is really, really cool.
And the pattern on the number 25 car, on each side there's 2 images, and it's an homage to 4 of the great cars in the history of BMW Motorsport, starting with that 3.0 CSL that won the first race for BMW Motorsport in its first year of existence in '75. As we just enjoy this ride, there's a look at that BMW. That is the number 25, and those black panels you see just sort of behind the B-pillar on that car is where those images are. Here's the one you were talking about, Cal.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's not quite as effective. I think it'll be even better at Sebring when it gets really dark, but here with so much light, it's not quite the same effect. But when they showed it off here earlier in the week and displayed it before they turned the lights on, it was really cool.
Just had a shot in the midst of this as we're watching that BMW. That's the number 100. Graham Rahal sitting in the 3rd spot. Right behind him is the number 52 of Jose Gutierrez, who's running 2nd in Prototype Challenge, having another good run for the defending race champion team.
Yeah, they got a stout driver lineup, and Bobby Ogle is really bullish about their chances this year. Tom Kimbersmith returns as the pro in that car. Number 52 car won the NAEC championship last year, won Daytona. Going to be tough.
Absolutely, and I would think here, Cal, as it gets cooler and cooler, some of these GT Le Mans cars that have the turbos might become a little bit more lively as well as the air chills down here. As we are back to racing, things have settled a bit. We're going to step away for just a moment. We will be right back.
Last year at the Rolex 24, Core Autosport saw a potential victory literally go up in flames. Just 20 minutes or so from the end of the race, had a little contact with a GT car, and as they tried to limp back to the pits, they had an oil leak and it burst into flames. And now another problem, and this one sounds like it could be very serious indeed. Let's listen.
It's just like in 6th gear, and it just went, and that was it.
And just before that, we had heard them say, I think we lost the engine. So, and that is not what you want to hear. Mark Wilkins behind the wheel. It was Colin Brown behind the wheel last year here at the 24 when they had that contact and fire late in the going. They rebounded from that. Colin Brown and John Bennett won the championship. This is what happened last year. Brown had led a vast majority of the race with his teammates, had some contact, and then as he's trying to come back around, something broke in the back, and the big spin, contact on the wall, coming back onto the banking, and car burst into flames, and their hopes for a victory here gone.
And once again, I mean, they're right where they wanted to be. They were right at the sharp end, and I mean, that is extremely rare. Last year it happened so close to the end. They still were classified second, but second, I don't know what they say about second.
I think that's going to work. And problems for the 67.
Another right rear tire, so there's clearly something going on there. And that's happened in turn 1, so he's had to limp a long,
at least the third Michelin right rear tire.
2 on 4 GTs.
And 1 on the 25 BMW.
Yeah, so, you know, sometimes there was an update. It was not a Michelin update. There was a GTD update where they were recommending higher starting pressures. And so one of the things that can happen is if you start with too low a temperature when they're cold, to get in, you can damage the sidewall, and with the loads on the banking, that can cause a failure later on. Don't know if that's what's going on here, but you know what? And the reason you would do that is, you know, sometimes that's where the best way to get it to be at the optimal range hot is by playing with the cold temps.
Looks like they. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
No, looks like there's been damage to that diffuser, so we're going to get a chance to see how quickly they can change that kind of part out.
Well, the other thing, too much negative camber in the back. You're riding right on the inside edges, can heat that up pretty quickly. Talk about heating things up. Porsche's 1-2 in GTLM. Frederick McAvicky in the 912. Nick Tandy in the 911 just behind, and you'll be able to watch them throughout the night and know which car is which. Notice the blue lights on the 912, the red light on the 911. And when do you remember the lights first coming into play here at Daytona in the Rolex 24 when teams started putting these different colored lights inside?
The first one, well, I mean, inside, I remember way back in the 80s, the Interscope cars ran these glowing green number plates, and they were the only ones that had it. Now everyone's numbers light up somewhat. But the thing is, for the scorers, for the team, for when coming down pit lane under yellow, something you can do to identify the car from outside.
And not at all uncommon for the teams to have different colored window banners or different colored mirrors. The 912 has black highlights on it. The 911 white highlights. If you'll look at the window banners above it, you can see the lead car black window banner. The 911 with the white Corvette for years ran an orange window banner on the 3 and a black on the 4. So you could look down the straightaway from a long shot and know exactly which car you were looking at, since they're essentially painted the same. But now they're doing it with lights. And take a look at this up front.
Brendan Hartley taking a look, and he didn't have a whole lot of time to mess around, because here comes the 31 as well.
See the 5, Hartley, Johnny Adam in the 31, just behind him, the 0-1 in there, Brendan Hartley, Christian Fittipaldi. Good stuff going on there. But we saw the problems for the 54. Let's check in their camp with Matt.
Well, John Bennett's able to put a smile on his face, but what exactly happened? Any indication what went away in the motor?
Yeah, I don't really know. They just took the car back, but it looks drivetrain related and fairly terminal. So yeah, it doesn't look like the car is going to run 24 hours. It's I hate it for all the guys. I mean, we had a pretty solid plan, and everything was fitting into place. But you know, it's endurance racing. This equipment is pushed to the limit, and you just get what you get sometimes. But we'll regroup, have a shiny new car for Sebring, and we'll get back after it.
Thank you, John. Chris?
Mark Royce is Executive Vice President at General Motors. And Mark, last year you guys had an incredible year in motorsports. You won the manufacturer's title in Sprint Cup and in IndyCar. You won the Triple Crown in auto racing, in sports car racing, the Rolex 24, the Sebring 12 Hours, and then at Le Mans. How do you follow that up in 2016?
That's a tough deal, I got to tell you, but we got a great team, and all of our teams and our cars, and you know, these guys are pros, so it's all about team. And I can't say enough about the teamwork that goes on every day, and the engineering that goes back and forth to make the cars great, and their drivers, our drivers. I think we got the best driver lineup in the world here in every series. So it's that's what it's all about, and you know, we love being together, and it's all about the teamwork.
Yeah, and you've got teams in prototype and also in GTLM. What's that like for GM?
Well, it's great because you know when we changed the Daytona prototypes to the new Corvette body, that was a big deal, and it was a good thing for the sport. And then we've been in Corvette with the yellow cars here for quite a while and had a lot of winning experience there, and won half the times we've been to Le Mans, which is a big spiritual experience for us. So these guys in the pit I'm in right now know how to win, and so do the other guys down here a few cars away in the DPs. So it's a wonderful experience, and this is the best weekend in the year here in racing right here at Daytona. This year, Daytona Rising, I mean, you see the stands with people in it across the track, and you know, the new injectors and the $400 million put in here by the France family and NASCAR and Daytona. It's just phenomenal. When people come here, it's going to change the experience of racing.
Yeah, truly a special experience. We're sitting here looking at this new grandstands right now, getting the opening week of racing here, but we're here in just a couple weeks for the Daytona 500. In Chevrolet, such a big part of the Daytona Rising project.
It was, and you know, we really worked long and hard. Our guys really worked hard. I went through it all today, and we've got great branding, but more importantly, we're about the product and the customer experience. So when you walk through our injector, it's all about our cars and trucks and crossovers, and it's about an incredibly upscale class experience for Chevrolet. And maybe there'll be some surprises here as we begin to put a little more money into it and invest a little bit. So a lot of good things, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've already heard from the fans this weekend, really enjoying that new stadium on the other side of the front straightaway here, and you know they're going to love it come the Daytona 500.
You can tell listening to Mark Royce that he's not just an executive that's been given some talking points. And some of the executives you see at races sometime are there because it's under their purview. He clearly is a big fan. When he says this is the best weekend of the year for me, he's down there in the pits. My guess is he'll be here all night, and it bodes well for Chevrolet and motorsports, because when you have real fans, real supporters, people that get it in the higher levels, it helps keep the support coming.
Absolutely. Go to the battle for third in GT Le Mans. Speaking of Royce, well, there's the number 3 Corvette. GM products running well, and they would like to do what they did last year here again. And we kept saying tried and true, and there it is again. Very tried and true Corvette with just some minor updates, chasing that brand new BMW.
They got the Night Stalker in that 100 BMW. Graham Rahal is now behind the wheel, doing what he does when the lights go down.
Yeah, but who's behind him? Mike Rockenfeller. And that's the other great thing about this event. Think about that. Mike Rockenfeller, a factory Audi driver, really kind of on loan, because Audi's saying, look, you're not going to be in a car for a while. So you know what? There's no better place to get some real racing experience. That's why the IndyCar drivers are here. It's why you see drivers on loan. Brendan Hartley, a Porsche factory driver, running third right now in a Ford-powered Daytona prototype in the prototype category. Some of these factories want their drivers to get out there and run.
Well, it's one of these cool, it's a recognition of their drivers' passion and big events, and it's really cool what Porsche and Audi have done especially, but even Olivia Pla, who's going to drive for Ford and WEC, is in that Shank car. So that used to happen a lot in the old days. Guys would hop around different series, and then when the big sponsors and manufacturers got involved, that kind of stopped because of conflicts. And now, for whatever reason, you know, racers like Dr. Ulrich and the people at Porsche and now at Ford are seeing the light and letting their guys do what they do.
Well, you want them to stay sharp, you know, and talking to guys like Ryan Hunter-Reay and Scott Dixon and all that, they're saying, we don't get to test much. We've got a long off season. We need to stay in a car. And they come here to the Rolex 24. For 53 years, drivers have been doing that. Now it's the 54th year, and the racing is just as good. There's a look at your leaderboard. More coming your way right after this. Well, we talked about the Daytona 500 a little bit earlier. That means the NASCAR season is about to rev up, and NASCAR Race Hub is the place to get all the info from on and off the track. Don't miss NASCAR Race Hub at its new time, weekdays at 5 Eastern, only on FS1. There's a tight prototype battle as you look up front. You see the 5 car right now, Christian Fittipaldi, Brendan Hartley right behind him. Now the 2 of Pippo Durrani down a lap or so. He's not in that battle, but he's hanging right on the rear wing of the 0-2. Also saw that great battle between the Corvette and the BMW. There it is again. Mike Rockefeller in the number 3 trying desperately to get around that 25 BMW. That's a brand new car, and they've got to be excited about it at BMW, Matt.
A lot of passion from the manufacturer at BMW. Not only is the car number 100, but it's commemorating the 100 years of BMW. And I know it's very special for you, Jens Marquardt, Director of Motorsports at BMW, for you and your entire teammates and company.
Well, I mean, it's a very special year for us, obviously. 100 years of BMW, big thing to celebrate. Heritage on one car, future on the other car, and that combined with Daytona rising here. The new car, the new M6, so we're very excited. 6 hours nearly into the race, everything's running smoothly. Little hiccup on one car with the tire, but so far so good, and still a long way to go.
Now the new car, it's beautiful up close, but it looks stellar on the racetrack. What's been the biggest response from the fans seeing the new car?
Well, it has been really great. I mean, we were not sure how it would be received, the M6, but so far it has been just really fantastic. People love it, we love it, and I think it really looks great. Also the 2 liveries, especially now at night, the one that is a bit more reflective. I think it really looks great, but at the end of the day, it has to be fast, and that's what we have to prove, and also be reliable. So quite a few more hours that we have to keep our fingers crossed.
So much rich history with BMW on the racetrack. Do you have a special memory?
Well, I think especially here in the US, the 3-liter CSL is a very special car. 40 years ago, 40 years of BMW North America last year. So many good memories, so it would be nice to repeat the win from 40 years ago. But it's a tough one. Competition is hard, and we'll see.
And I know you're very proud, not only of the race car on the track, but also the street model. I've heard so much about people seeing it and so excited.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing. You know, if you have a very good street car, which we have, making a race car out of it is a bit of an easier job, and the M6 is really a perfect model to build the race car on, and the powertrain is more or less really left like production, and it's, as you see, it's really competitive, so it shows you what a real good car the M6 is.
All right, thank you. Guys?
And there's so much, as Jens was saying, so much of the street car in the race car. As you watch Christian Fittipaldi come in the number 5, there's going to be a driver change that takes place there.
Looks like Albuquerque getting in. Another driver on loan from Audi.
It seems like after the small miscue by Joao Barbosa early on, cars run well, just a little bit of a nudge into the tires. There's a mark on the left front. I don't think they even needed to change the tire routine stop, just waiting for the driver change to be finished. And now Felipe Albuquerque back underway. I understand the 60 coming in as well, but I was saying about the BMW, it's basically a stock engine, but without the variable cam timing and a couple other changes out of the X5, the X6, the M5. And that's impressive. Much like several of the other manufacturers in GTLM, it actually produces maybe a little less horsepower in race trim than it does in street trim.
It's remarkable, really, when you think about what the power levels in road cars and that have come along.
Fit this lap, driver change tires.
And think, too, about the first turbo cars that you ever drove, and now you've got this 4.4-liter twin turbo. That seems to be kind of unheard of, and talking to the engineers, they say it really, the way the turbos work now and the way it's designed, is it just feels like you're driving a big 6-liter V8. You don't have that big hit that the turbo used to give us back in the olden days.
And we'll talk about it a little more when we get back with the BMW. You could see some of the strengths and weaknesses between the Vet and the BMW, where it was strong and where it was a little bit weak. But coming off the corner, the turbo was actually stretching the Corvette a little bit. Chris?
Well, Tommy, the overall leader, Olivier Pla, bringing the Mike Shank Racing prototype into pit lane here. Just checked in with Mike Shank. He said the car is fantastic. You know, they had that contact early in the race. They had a little bit of damage on the left front, but they replaced that body work on the last stop. It only takes about 15 seconds to change out a nose, so no issues in that change. The big change here, A.J. Allmendinger getting back behind the wheel. He won this race with this team back in 2012, so he's really itching to get back into pit lane, or back into victory lane. And very smooth stop by this team. 4 new Continental tires on that car.
I think he stalled it leaving the pit there. Either that or they cut the mic off on the onboard camera. Now he's still underway. Just all of a sudden went silent, and I couldn't tell that the engine was still running. He has had such success here as far as speed goes. The Mighty Mite, as you might want to call him. He's not the tallest guy in the world. Of course, nobody is compared to you, Tommy Kendall, but he gets the job done when he comes here to Daytona.
Well, and it'd be a good time to recognize a guy that was such a big part of this team and a close friend of A.J. Allmendinger's and Justin Wilson as we go to the 10 pit stop.
Well, Tommy, that team just finishing up. They're a little further down pit lane than I am, but I think Rubens Barrichello still behind the wheel. And I checked in with Wayne Taylor about 10-15 minutes ago, asking how things were going there. And he said, we lost some time in pit lane on the driver change because the belts just weren't right for Rubens. And Rubens added to this program very late, didn't get many laps prior to this race. So Wayne said it took him a little bit of time in this first stint to get up to speed, but after about 10 laps out there, he was right on the money, up to speed. Says the car is really strong.
He makes his way out of pit lane, and like you said, Chris, not a lot of laps in the car. He'll have to learn about cold tires in the nighttime here, but it's Rubens Barrichello. He's got plenty of time. Seat time, that's for sure. As you look back to the 60, you were just saying, one of the things Mike Shank said at press conferences here at the Roar when they were announcing their Le Mans program, the very first thing he mentioned, he said, before I ever even talk about Le Mans, what I want to say is being here without, our good friend is tough. It's tough. And certainly Justin was great friends with Mike Shank, but he and A.J. Allmendinger are very, very tight and been buddies for a long time, raced together in the IndyCar program.
And they had a very special friendship, and that big win that they had a few years ago was set up by the work that Justin did in the middle of the night so that AJ could get a bunch of rest and be really fresh. So it reminded me of cycle racing, where you had the guy, the lead out guy, that really just punishes himself to set the guy up, the rocket guy, to go to the end. And so this has become a bit of a tradition as we're getting close to going off the air late in the evening. A.J. Allmendinger just putting in incredible performances, and one of the stats, he's led every single Rolex he's been in, and with this car the way it's been running, I expect it won't be long before we see the same thing. So get ready, pop yourself a fresh cold one, and get ready to watch the show.
He just has this tremendous fire in him, and always has from the time that I knew him when he was running Atlantic cars in the very beginning, and there was just, and still is, just something about him. And really the same can be said for Justin Wilson, and he's Justin, somebody certainly who is going to be missed, and I think to some extent he's still very much on everybody's mind, even in the heat of battle while they're out there right now. There's still a special place, everybody on that Mike Shank Racing team, for Justin Wilson. Up front, Brendan Hartley on loan from the Porsche factory program. He was your champion, one of your world champions in World Endurance Championship last year in the LMP1 program. He leads up front, then Tony Kanaan, Jonathan Bomarito, and still impressed with the work that Mazda did towards the latter half of last season, testing that new engine. And, it was a big step to come out and say, I know that we didn't have great performance last year, but we got something new again, and not have everybody go, sure you do, sure you do. I mean, when they came out with it, they were ready.
Well, we talked a little pretty good opposite lock there coming off the hairpin, but talking about keeping motivation and continuing to push even when you're off the pace, and that's where the intra-team rivalry comes into effect, because those guys are all battling to look better than everyone else to further their careers. And so even if you're not competing directly, you're competing between the two cars, and you're competing amongst the drivers. They're trying to constantly raise each other's game.
There's your known commodity on the left. It's Tony Kanaan now behind the wheel of the 02, that brand new Mazda engine in the number 55, giving chase, and you can tell it's got good speed down through the long sections of the racetrack, so good top speed there. And that little bit older chassis, we talked about it earlier, it is good aerodynamically, certainly on these smooth racetracks. Maybe a bit more of a challenge later in the season on some of the rougher circuits, but right now it looks good, and Jonathan Bomarito looks hungry.
Kanaan got held up a little bit in the second part of the bus stop there, and Bomarito got up next to him pretty quickly, but couldn't advance further.
And remember, you're used to seeing the number 70 on the Mazda, especially the Speed Source Mazdas. 55 is not a real familiar number, but it is the number that Mazda ran on that 787B that they won Le Mans with back in 1991. Chris?
Well, Brian, your leader in GT Daytona, and we talked to Brian Sellers just a little while ago. Madison Snow was behind the wheel. I think he might be staying behind the wheel. It looked like Mirko Bartolotti was going to be getting in the car, but I think he just handed off a water bottle. So it's just fuel and tires for this car. And we knew that GT Daytona was going to be an incredible race with 7 different makes here. And I've been trying to pay attention to who's been leading, but it seems to me like just about all of those 7 different makes have led this race at some point in time.
I think you may be right, Chris, and it seems like the only problem with the Lamborghini Huracan is that you don't want to crash it. Well, you don't want to crash any race car, but we talked about it's an aluminum frame. It's hard to fix it. You got to find somebody who can weld aluminum, and they're just not a dime a dozen.
No, but that's part of racing.
It is part of racing. 48 heads back out. Tony Kanaan leads overall. More to come from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Don Yount with a problem in the number 26, the Prototype Challenge entry. WeatherTech Sports Car Championship action from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. That is in the International Horseshoe just at the exit. He's turned the car around, similar to where we saw Jamie McMurray sitting on one of the restarts after contact with one of the Corvettes. Little more dispersed traffic, though, than it was when Jamie was there on the restart.
You see the lights going on and off. He's just trying to get it restarted.
Yeah, don't see any exhaust, and
at least it's a well-lit, not blind part of the track.
But it's a gray-colored car. And you hope that the guys that are coming through the corner have their eyes up and are looking well through to see you sitting there, waving his hand saying, I got a problem. And the full course caution comes out, and that's going to mix things up again. Be interesting to see who decides to do a pit stop here. The 02, I would think, would be
generally
about ready to do so.
Generally speaking, if the cars that have just stopped recently, like we saw some of those GTD cars.
He gets together with the 911 coming off the corner, and then there was a little more contact between another couple of GTD cars just behind. Be interesting to see the right side of the 911, because pretty good little punch there. Don Yount sitting there. He knows that we've gone full course caution now, so the thought of being contacted, and there's the side of the 911. Don't see any real marks there. Kind of hard to see in the dark, and that might be good or bad. Maybe there's no marks on the paint because it's wheel to wheel, which isn't necessarily a good thing.
Looks pretty darn clean.
Yeah,
actually.
Looks very clean. Well, while we go to full course caution, let's check in the Action Express camp with Matt Yoakum.
Brian, no other sport in America showcases the involvement of family like auto racing, and especially true here in the Action Express team. When you look back 3 years ago, Joao Barbosa's boys, Rodrigo and Jill, decided that they want to decorate up their dad's racing shoes, markers and highlighters. And little Manuela Fittipaldi saw that 2 years ago and decided she needed to do Christian shoes. And so she began that tradition for she and her father, Christian. Now, this past year, Christian's shoe supplier, OMP, decided they needed to help with her artistic side a little bit more. So they gave him white shoes. So she went to town with pink and gold, decorated up his race shoes once again. And you can see her name, her age. And what I love especially is over here on the side, I love you, Dad. For you, Christian, that's got to be special.
Well, absolutely. I think it's two completely different persons right now. It's Christian before a kid and Christian after a kid. And I guess when you have a kid, you pretty much do everything for them. And it's very special for me to be running with my daughter painting my shoes. And what can I say? I feel extremely happy, honored, and she supports me to all the races. She's 5 years old now, so she's starting to understand what's winning and losing. And sometimes when we don't win, I go back home and I said, well, I didn't win. And she goes, how come you didn't win? Like, so it's pretty cool. And it couldn't be more special for me.
And a lot goes into her color selection as well.
Well, the shoes are entirely up to her. Whatever she wants to do in the shoe, I'm okay with it. If she wants to go green, black, pink, purple, and whatever design she wants to do, it's fantastic.
And it's proven to be good luck winning championships. Real quick, how's the car?
Car's okay. We have some understeer mid-corner, but basically what's killing me, keeping me from going a little bit quicker is power down. Our power down is not great right now, but there's still a long ways to go. We're absolutely in the hunt, and we just need to keep our nose clean until about hour, 15 to 18, and then start positioning yourself towards the end of the race.
Thank you.
Well, I was actually coloring Tommy's shoes while we were in the break just then, but.
And you know, there's my life before Brian and after Brian.
And there you go. And speaking of there you go, there's the 007. Qualified 12, not the speed that they wanted, but James Davison has taken that Aston Martin from Kevin Buckler's The Racers Group to the lead in GT Daytona. Still a long way to go from here at Daytona, though. Almost 18 hours left in this historic event. Hey, don't forget this week, Katie Nolan is live in San Francisco to bring her fresh, irreverent, and unfiltered take on the world of sports to Radio Row, where she'll be joined by some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment. Don't miss special Super Bowl editions of Garbage Time with Katie Nolan at 6 p.m. Eastern, all this week, only on FS1. Tommy, I think you need to be on that show.
I'd love to. She's a crack up. She's probably not for everyone, but she's fun and quirky.
You would fit in perfectly. The 02 on pit road just finishing one of their pit stops, and we'll have plenty more coverage from the Rolex 24 for you. Take a look at the rest of the event as you will be able to catch it. And some, that was close coming out of the pits. Goodness. Nobody wants to give an inch, but that's where you'll catch the rest of the Rolex 24 all the way up to the checkered flag at 2:40 p.m. Whoops. Running the red light at pit out.
That's not going to end well.
That doesn't usually end well. No, it does not. You are correct.
He was so determined to cut Kanan off into the fast lane that he blew through the light.
55 on pit road. This doesn't look like your standard stop, Tommy.
No, what are they doing? Oh, steering wheel change.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We saw that on one of the other cars earlier. So much of the electronics now go through the hub, through the steering column, and a lot of times those fittings.
Generally, it would have to do with the shifting.
Yep. Well, while they work on the 55 and try to get him back out, it's the time to get this stuff done because it's full course caution. But we talked a little bit earlier about the Lamborghini Huracans and that you didn't want to crash them. There's a lot of work to be done when you do have an incident in one, isn't there, Chris?
Well, there is in Change Racing. They had a big incident on Thursday in the rain. Spencer Papelli putting their brand new Lamborghini into the wall. This team stepping up to the WeatherTech Series for the first year. They're coming out of the Super Trofeo Series, and Robbie Benton bringing his team up here. That car had a massive hit into the wall. Lots of suspension damage on the left front. And Brian, you were talking about that aluminum chassis, and really what it did is it ripped the suspension right out of that chassis. You could literally stick your fist through the holes in the chassis, and this team figured it out. They were able to to weld those suspension points back onto the chassis, get the car out on the racetrack. They were up till 2:30 in the morning on Thursday night, getting the car back on the racetrack. And this team's saying, hey, it might not be perfect, but this far into the race, they're doing pretty well. I just checked in with Robbie Benton, and he said, I made a mistake early on. We did a pass by on the pace car that we shouldn't have, so we got a penalty. But otherwise, this car very fast on the racetrack. And hey, we've got a Daytona Rolex 24 winner down here sitting on the box with him, talking to Robbie Benton. That's Buddy Rice, Indy 500 winner too, having some fun here at the Rolex 24.
Good to see Buddy Rice at the racetrack. And the important thing is that we're coming up on a milestone in the event. 5 hours, 59 minutes and change. Once we cross the 6-hour mark, we get there. That is going to award points in the Tequila Patron North America Endurance Cup. And when they come across that line, it's going to be A.J. Allmendinger who's going to ring up some points for Mike Schenk Racing and Prototype. Mike Rockenfeller is going to ring some up for Corvette. And look a little bit further down the way, your leader in Prototype Challenge, the number 52 from PR1. And in GTD, Pedro Lamy in the 98, the Aston Martin.
I was wondering if we were going to see maybe the Mazda stay out because the 02 not running the whole season, the TPNAC points aren't important to it. But then I think Mazda took that opportunity to try to diagnose what was going on with the car, the steering wheel. So 6 hours and 3 seconds. So that 60 car, when it comes around, will get those 6-hour points.
23 in the pits as well. And, you know, for some of these teams, they'll take the points as they can get them. That's second in GT Daytona. Alex Riberas was shown behind the wheel. We'll see when they go across the timing line if perhaps there was a driver change there. And I'm very impressed with this new Porsche. You had said earlier that there were a lot of changes between teams and the makes that they went to. And it was interesting to see teams like Magnus say, you know, we were having a difficult time getting a handle on the Porsche last year. We're going to make this change. We've been Porsche stalwarts. And of course, Murphy's Law, you move away and all of a sudden now the car that you left has a really good one. Problem still for the 55. This is not what you want to see. That steering wheel change obviously did not fix the electrical problem. They'll go to work and see if they can get things sorted out, and we'll be right back. Rolex 24 at Daytona, and you saw some of the sights that we've seen throughout the event. Just a little over 6 hours in the books, and that means that we have awarded some championship points already. That's for the Tequila Patron North American Endurance Cup, the Rolex 24, 12 hours of Sebring, 6 hours of the Glen, Petit Le Mans, all awarding points at different parts of the race and at the checkered flag, and the championship paid out at the end. All 4 classes get points awarded. And we saw the 60 car grab them, the 911 in GT-LM, 52 in PC, Prototype Challenge in the 48 in the GT Daytona category. And there it is. See if I was right, I guess. And look, nicely done. Actually, I think I missed GT Daytona. There's the 98 at the bottom, and I had looked at, yeah, you know, 3 out of 4. I made a 75. Well, you were no help at all.
Well, they opened the pit second, thanks. Par for the course. Par for the course. What's that saying?
I don't know. What is that saying? So the Mazda is back out. The 55 is back out. And I'm looking at the display there. And it looks to me like it's cycling through right now. I don't.
You saw the Motec thing. Now it's showing a page, 3rd gear, 2nd gear.
Yeah, but it's in and out.
Flash. It's hard to know if that sometimes can happen with the camera. The sampling rate of the camera is the same as the LEDs. Yeah.
So some adjustments on the wheel. We'll have to wait to find out if the 55 has found a solution to their problem. What about the 90, Matt?
The 90 pit road.
Whatever happened to the dash has also happened to Matt's microphone.
Could be sunspots. Yeah, I think that might be it. So problems with electronics seem to be happening down in the pit lane, the 55, and then Matt Yoakum. And now we've gone back to green here at Daytona. And just like we've seen throughout the event, we go back to green, and the person sitting up front not wasting any time. And this is where it can get a bit dicey, and it does, coming into the horseshoe. One of the Ferraris, I couldn't tell if it was the 62.
Beretta, it was Beretta and Makoviecki.
Wow. Guys pressing hard, and remember, just under 18 hours left to go, but every restart is like Russian roulette down into the international horseshoe, coming through the kink at speed, and there's a car seems to be a little bit off pace. I believe it's the 007 not carrying the pace of some of the other cars, and right now, cars streaming around the outside. Santiago Creel now behind the wheel of the 007, so James Davison had been in. He was accustomed to that car. Creel now in for the first time, and he's going to have to come to grips with not only the cool temperatures and cool tires, but a very angry swarm of competitors as they now make it up onto the banking out of turn 6.
He'll find some solitude here shortly.
Yeah. And that's scary. You get put out there for the first time, and all of a sudden you're in the thick of it. It's cold. The tires are cold. Some of the other guys had been out there for a while, and somebody off at the bus stop.
I think that might be the Krone car. No, it's a Lambo.
It's
Conrad car.
The 28. Going to have a penalty for the 21 car as well. Too many people over the wall. Be a drive-through penalty. The Lamborghini Huracan GT3. And now things can begin to settle down just a little bit. AJ Allmendinger has the lead, then the 31 running well throughout the event so far through the first 6 hours. Johnny Adam in second. Brendan Hartley in the 01. You see him right there. Hartley and the 5 of Felipe Albuquerque side by side coming up to the kink. Oh, and you don't want to get stuck on the outside there, do you?
No, you don't. And those guys know each other from Europe. They're on opposite teams over there,
yeah,
too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right behind the 02. Tony Kanaan wants a piece of this. This is just good stuff. Absolutely. And you got 3 guys right here who are not regulars in these type of cars.
All DP-based cars.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent racing and varied backgrounds of those 3 drivers, but it just shows the international flavor of this event. It's the battle for third. You see it right there. Brendan Hartley, the Porsche factory driver. Felipe Albuquerque with Audi. Tony Kanaan, on obviously the IndyCar star, and having a great go of it. Barrichello still holding on in 6th in the 10. He's been in that car for a while, and another prototype challenge car off at the bus stop. The 20. Ricardo Vera, kind of a late add to the 20, and there's a look at the 85 car that had been running very well up in front. Steven Simpson behind the wheel for a long time in the early goings, had led, and now it's dropped back into the 4th place category.
Yeah,
class.
The contact, the 50-plus car, moving that 20 up the banking.
David Hinton behind the wheel of the 50. Check this out again. Well,
he was still trying to get his wits back about him. You know, a little rattled from his off in the chicane.
Just kind of drifted down a little bit and squeezed Hinton back into GTLM. You see the 72,
Battle
the Ferrari
for the lead.
Jimmy Bruni. Bruni being shown in 7th in the category right now, but you've got GTD cars in there, one of which just happens to be the leader. Alessandro Balzan, Madison Snow in there as well in the 48 Audi. So you got a GTLM car, actually 2 of them trying to work through the battle for the lead in GT Daytona. Oh! 25 really pushing the 48 up and shows you the power.
Yeah. And we've heard that a lot from the GTD guys, or the GTLM cars, that the GTD cars are about as faster. It looks like in this case maybe a hair faster. And so under braking, you should be able to get there.
Yeah, but remember ABS brakes on the Audi in the GT Daytona category, but the BMW does slip through. That's the 25. Bruno Spengler. He's trying to give chase to Jimmy Bruni. That's the battle for 7 and 8. And then the 63 is Alessandro Balzan, a former champion in the category. Madison Snow in the Audi just behind him, and that battle's kind of gotten mixed up because of the GT Le Mans cars coming through. But that's both the benefit and the liability of multi-class racing, isn't it? If you can get through, we saw Joey Hand actually do something spectacular in the early goings, able to put some GT Daytona traffic between himself and one of his nearest competitors. Oh, and one of the Fords slips wide there. But sometimes that traffic works for you, and sometimes it can work against you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's maddening because all you remember is the times that you had trouble and you got held up and so forth. But it really is what separates this from any other kind of racing, and it really is frustrating for both parties because it's not a perfect situation. Your race is always being disrupted from the front or the back, but it really is what makes it cool. And I mean, there's some times where it's a bit much, where people really are kind of out to lunch and just wandering around like Mr. Magoo. But the rest of it, though, it really adds an element that's really makes it interesting.
I'll tell you, the battle got split because of the GTLM cars, but it is now closed right back up. And Madison Snow, a very, very impressive young man, showing what he can do in an Audi, and he has climbed right back up on the rear wing of Alessandro Balzan's Ferrari 458. See who's got the legs through the banking. Well, that Audi looks good. Looks strong.
It's a Lambo, but...
Oh, thank you, Tommy. Thank you. Correct me whenever you want.
Sister
because
brand.
I'm wrong a lot.
Sister brand.
But I mean, wow. Not only is it strong in a straight line, but it also has good torque coming off the corner, the acceleration rate all the way through.
Yeah, wow.
And he's cleared it and gone.
I was talking with Brian Sellers a little bit. Madison obviously spent most of his time in Porsches, all of his time in Porsches, and so he kind of hadn't really gelled with this car. And they went out there. He did a long run, and it just clicked at the Roar. And ever since then, he's been bang on the pace. And that's a really strong lineup in that car.
Did you ever race a Porsche?
Very few times. I drove one at Le Mans in 2000 with Franz Conrad, but I mean, and the only time I raced one in a big race was that.
Everybody says it takes a very, very different driving style, and you have to kind of adjust to the nuances of the chassis, the rear engine, and all of that. And I would think that when you move to a car that is a mid-engine car, it's going to have a completely different feel to it once again.
Yeah, and if it's all you've driven, I was always a fan of driving different kinds of stuff, so you didn't get locked into one style without realizing it. And so, but with this car, mid-engine, theoretically, it's kind of an ideal configuration. But if it's not what you're used to, it takes a little getting used to.
It's the 458 Ferrari in GT Daytona, the 488, the brand new Ferrari that runs in GTLM. Chris, you've got more on the 62?
That's right, Brian. Olivier Beretta having a great run right now, running third behind the two Porsches on the racetrack. And you said that car was brand new. Literally, the wrapper came off that car just this week here in Miami. Just checking with the team. We've been talking about that Ford GT and the thousands of miles of testing they've been doing prior to this event. Well, Risi Competizione, they only did about 100 kilometers of testing over in Italy before shipping that car over here. So speaking with the team manager, Dave Sims, he said, this is truly a test for us. We have no idea what this car is going to do, what we've got in front of us, but right now they're having a great run. He said after this race, we're going to take it back to Houston. We're going to strip it down and get it ready for the Sebring test that's going to happen the end of February. He said that's when we're going to really have a chance to see what we can do and what type of speed we have with this car. Matt?
Chris, Mark Goossens is behind the wheel of the 90 car. The only issue the team has really had at this juncture of the race was back about the 4-hour mark. When they were in 6th gear, the rev limiter was hitting it nowhere near the RPMs it should have, so they brought the car to pit road, changed an engine sensor. Now all is well with the number 90 running in the 7th position. They're just on a different pit sequence than some of the other drivers. Now, it's going to be a very busy summer for owner Troy Fliss. They're going to take the Visit Florida show car to Goodwood. It's a 2-seater, so some lucky fans are going to get some rides up the hill. And then a week later, he's going to take his 8-year-old son, Carson, to Le Mans. I believe you may see Le Mans, just like Mike Shank Racing, in the future for VisitFlorida.com 2017.
That would be very, very cool. And certainly to go over there with your son has got to be awesome. I would love to take my kids at some point in time. It's a pretty magical place. You look back up front, Nick Tandy and GTLM leading.
Well, and second and third both just set their fastest laps of the race. Makovecki and Beretta, fast lap of the race in those cars, running nose to tail.
Cool temperatures bringing fast laps here at Daytona, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Only thing missing there, the marshmallows, the graham crackers, and the chocolate to make some s'mores. WeatherTech Sports Car Championship from the Rolex 24 at Daytona. 17.5 hours and a little bit more to go. And the weather that had looked so bad earlier in the week, the rains that were here on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they're gone. The weather has been spectacular, and the racing has been intense. A.J. Allmendinger behind the wheel of the 60 now, out in front. You said it earlier, Tommy. Every time he's run here, he's led at least a lap. He's out in front right now. It'll be interesting to see. The best lap for the number 60 was actually the 5th lap of the race, and it was Osnegre that did it, but you said a minute ago in break, well, it'll be interesting to see how long that stays once AJ gets out there and gets the bit in his teeth. But can't help but wonder if they're just running a pace right now, if they've set a number that they want to make, and that's just what they try to keep hitting lap after lap after lap.
AJ, 11 years, led every lap, just did it again. Proud to have you, buddy. I love you, man. It's always a pleasure, but be more happy to lead that last lap.
Wow, 11 years. I didn't realize it was that many.
A little bit of admiration there between those two.
Well, and it goes back to, you know, they're big supporters of each other. And when Shank was having trouble keeping the team going, AJ was there for him. And then when AJ had his trouble when he got suspended in NASCAR, Shank was there for him. And so it really is a strong bond, and they'd do anything for each other. I think the fact that he's not trying to claw himself back into contention, we might not see him really, push it too hard at this point. He's out in front, and I'm sure he's not going to pussyfoot it, but he will be probably running well within his means and trying to save the car as much as they can. The gap's about 6 seconds, and it seems to be kind of holding about there.
I believe they had a grooming bet at one point in time when they won. Didn't he shave a 60 into? Didn't AJ?
Yeah.
Shave a 60
into the side of his head or something.
Interesting. This is the battle for third in GT Le Mans, the 62. Olivier Beretta, the 100. The Night Stalker is what you actually called Graham earlier, Tommy.
Yep. You know, he's a good, hard-working young man. Checked in for the night shift, and Beretta has fallen back off of the two Porsches. They were nose to tail. Now there's about a 6-second gap, and I don't know what's caused him to fall back, but Graham Rahal. It's interesting watching all the differences between all these cars. There, it looked like Rahal had a big run on the Ferrari into the tri-oval.
Look just behind the front tires on the BMW and watch the exhaust, especially as you come into a braking zone. Watch the exhaust. I know I certainly saw it on the right side. Something in there. See the heat?
Yeah. Well, the exhaust does let down. See there it is. There it is. That's the exhaust outlet.
I just love the nighttime. Obviously, you see the brake glow, but on some of the prototypes, the Daytona prototype, you can look up into the engine compartment. You can see the glow of the headers. Last year on the Corvettes, you could kind of look up through the shark fins there behind the front tires. You could see the headers glowing on the inside. On that prototype challenge car, you can see it. And it just shows the temperature extremes that all of these power plants, the braking systems, and all of that go through, and they have to do it for 24 hours. It's just awesome.
Cars have gotten so good at, they kind of make it look easy that you forget until you see stuff like that. You know, when I was doing the 24-hour, one of the guys said it earlier in the telecast, how much the game has changed. Calvin and Justin were talking about it. It used to be back in the day, if you finished without any troubles, you won by 5 laps.
Yep.
And now it's a totally different game. Totally different game. You know, you got to keep the thing. Look at it. Yeah. Graham looking to the outside. Beretta protecting the inside.
And Olivier, one of the toughest customers out there in GT racing. Good battle here. Let's take a minute and check out our Mazda mid-race report with Chris Neville.
Well, Brian, we've also seen some pretty cool things when it comes to headlight technology in the nighttime at Daytona, Sebring, and Le Mans. And Mazda having a good run this year. They switched over to that gas power engine, been running up front. They led earlier in this race. And one thing they did this year is they switched their headlight technology over to LED headlights. Actually, these are the exact same headlights that Porsche ran with last year in WEC and won Le Mans with. And talking with Mazda, they said, you know what, Daytona, it's a very lit racetrack, but we want to come here. We want to work on this technology here. We want to make sure that we get it right for Sebring, because that's a racetrack that is very dark. Matt?
And Chris, the 911 and 912 from the Porsche North America team running 1-2 in GTLM, and Morgan Brady, the team manager. So has everything gone according to plan? You're running 1-2, but has it gone according to plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Being the 3rd year of the program here, we've really gelled as a team. And we've learned from the past 2 years, and we're taking what we've learned and we're applying it, and it's clearly showing.
You debuted with a win here in the Rolex in 2014. Last year, you closed out the season with a championship. What do you try to focus on now, trying to fine-tune this team even more?
You know, we really don't get too wrapped up in our past successes. There's always next year, and we spent all off season thinking about this race and thinking about this championship, and that's where we're at right now.
Well, good luck the rest of the night and tomorrow.
Thanks, Matt.
Say it's going according to plan. Nick Tandy just turned in the fastest race lap in GTLM. And you'd expect that as we get into the nighttime. The laps are just going to get quicker. That cool, dense air, it's going to be better for both horsepower and for aerodynamics. Once you get the tires hot after a lap or two, you should have the best car underneath you that you're going to have throughout the entire event.
You want to talk about evenly matched? He is 1/100th, 9 1,000ths faster than his teammate. I believe the 4GT is actually quickest race lap.
Just watching my color codes go through there.
Yes, the 66 car ran a 44.9, and the 67 car 44.3. So the 4GTs have the 2 quickest laps. I'm
going to stop talking.
It's funny because you watch. I mean, these cars. It's almost like they're being driven by computers, because neither car gains.
They're Porsche factory drivers.
I know. There you go. Obviously, the gap changes because the mile per hour, but the time distance. If there is a way to show that as they speed up, they get a little further apart. Just truly flying in formation.
Well, and while we were talking about that they hadn't showed the video since the Porsche dinner, it is well entrenched in everyone's mind. So right now you're running in lockstep. You're first and second. You've got 2 good cars underneath you. I'm wondering if the conversation hasn't been had already of not team orders per se, but much like the orders used to be given to Corvette drivers. And look at this, Ray Hall still working on Beretta. And that was, if you can get by, you know, the guy messes up coming off a corner or something, you can get by, that's fine, but I don't want to see you wheel to wheel, side by side, touching door handles in the braking zone. Not with your teammate.
No. I think that is probably the case here. A little Ricky Bobby, Jean Girard battle going on. Graham's learning what most of the other GT guys know, that Beretta is tough to get around.
No one knew. We talked about the BMW being bigger. No one knew that the Ferrari could be that wide. Graham Rahal thinking that it must be right now. He's having a hard time getting by, but You know, in Beretta's defense, I haven't seen anything, you know, that's off color that he shouldn't be doing. He's just not going to let you go by.
No,
he's done this for a long, long time.
He's a master of the fade.
Yep.
He gets you to commit one way, and then he squeezes you and leaves you room.
Yep.
So, and Bo Barfield has kind of said, listen, I'm going to really make a distinction between active and reactive. But I think at the end of the day, he doesn't want to insert himself too much into the races. So I think he's probably not totally happy with the squeeze, but as long as he leaves him a lane on the outside or, you know, wherever, he probably isn't going to get called in for it.
Well, as the race director, we were talking about it the other day, and he said, look, as a race director, it's like a boxing match. You're supposed to go out and beat up on each other. I don't want these guys going out and beating up on each other literally and banging doors and stuff like that just because, but contact is going to happen, and I'm only going to step in if there's a punch below the belt.
And for the record, I think that's how it should be. You know, I think blocking they should not police at all, and then they over-police it. Now I think about where they're at now is a pretty nice balance.
Now they've got the prototype challenge car to deal with. That's the 85. Running fourth in class, Misha Goikhberg. You might think, who is Misha Goikhberg? I thought it was Mikhail Goikhberg, and it's one and the same, but just preferring to go by Misha, and that's the way it is on the entry list, so that's what we will call him. But yes, it is the same Goikhberg that you are familiar with if you've been watching sports car racing over the last several years. Rene Rast currently second in GT Daytona. That is the 44 Magnus Racing entry. And you know, when I think about Magnus Racing, John Potter, who is just a great guy, pretty good driver, and he and Andy Lally do a great job together. But one of the things that I think this new formula in GT Daytona has done, which is adopting the International GT3 formula with the driver aids, the better aerodynamics, what you've got is it's a nicer car for the Pro-Am driver. I won't say an easier car. You still have to get out there. You got to wring its neck if you're going to get everything out of it. But you've got a little help with the ABS and with the traction control and a better aerodynamic package, and it makes it a little bit better drive for those Pro-Am guys.
I think so. And when I look down the driver list, you know, this looks like one of the strongest ones. You got Seafried, who's a silver, pretty strong through and through.
You ride on board right now, AJ Allmendinger still out in front, and if Honda could get to victory lane here, that would be huge, Chris.
Well, that would be huge because it would be their first time to victory lane overall here at the Rolex 24. Art St. Cyr, president of HPD. You've got a big smile on your face. You've got one of NASCAR stars out there right now keeping your car up front, so a lot of pressure off your shoulders at this point.
Well, there's a lot to be happy about right now, but it's really early in the race. You know, we're still 6 hours into a 24-hour race. Is a long way to go, but you know, so far things are looking pretty encouraging. You know, there's a lot of good competition out there, so we're just looking to keep in front.
Yeah, right now things looking good at the Rolex 24, but Mike Shank's group going to take you to the 12 hours of Sebring and also the 24 hours of Le Mans this summer. That's pretty big for you guys.
It is pretty big. You know, we've been here before, but you know, this is going to be Mike Shank's first trip to Le Mans, and he's really excited. We're really excited to bring it to him. You know, we got a really good package that we're looking to be real competitive in all of those places.
And obviously the package is good today, but lots of changes coming in 2017 to this class. How soon are we going to hear if Honda's going to be in?
Well, we're not talking about our future plans right now, but the new package is really exciting. You know, we are looking at to see what we can do, see how our program meshes with you know, what the new rules are, make sure it works for us.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you very much.
Well, you tried, Chris. You just couldn't get it out of him. 60 up front, and just by the way, we were talking about the bet that AJ Allmendinger and Mike Shank had, and it was actually Mike Shank that got AJ's logo shaved onto his head. And basically, I don't really keep up with their grooming habits all that much, but thanks to Matt Cleary for forwarding that and letting us know exactly what was going on there. And Shank's got some funky kind of fashion sense anyway, so wouldn't be surprising to see something shaved into his head.
Well, fortunately, that stuff grows out quickly.
Understand that Alessandro Balzan may have a bit of a problem in his Ferrari. He's beginning to drop back through the GT Daytona category. Madison Snow out in front. Jose Gutierrez leading in prototype challenge. You saw Mike Shank standing there, and understand the 31 coming to pit road soon. We'll cycle through more pit stops here at the Rolex 24. Still more to come from Daytona. Eric Kern now behind the wheel of the number 31, the Whelen Corvette Daytona prototype. We saw that pit stop taking place just as we went to break. And there it is, the 31 just in front, the 55 back out, and the 3, the Corvette with Mike Rockenfeller all running right there together, nose to tail as they start to work through some traffic. And you heard some of the drivers say, well, it's not like Le Mans, it's not as spread out, and it's almost like driving down the interstate. You get a gaggle of cars and you kind of clear it, and then you get a gaggle of cars again, and then you kind of clear it. And so there's been a little bit of attrition, and that's helped, but it's the restarts that really kind of seem to stack things up. As long as we can have long runs of green, it's a little bit easier on the guys.
Yeah, it really is no comparison to Le Mans. Le Mans, you rarely get big gaggles of cars, which you would think just randomly you would get some of those there, but for whatever reason, the nature of the corners and the long straights in between, you rarely get these. I think the hairpins really do something to bunch them up like that.
Saw the bright red Ferrari number 62, followed by the red, white, and blue number 72. Behind him, it was Olivier Beretta that has gotten past the 72 of Jimmy Bruni. And while these guys have raced together in the past and certainly know each other well, trust me, if you're of Italian lineage or European lineage and you are driving for the Ferrari factory, you don't want to be the one that's in the car behind the other Ferrari.
Yeah, no, incredible pride, and I mean, that's the cool thing about racing. Everybody says, "Oh, teammates, even you must really get along and always support each other." I said, "No, the fiercest fight is with your teammate.
There's no one that you would rather beat."
You've heard the saying. He says, "You got to be faster than everyone else." He said, "No, you just got to be faster than the slowest steer."
Yeah. How do you outrun a bear? I don't have to. I just have to outrun you.
Yep.
Yeah. Through the tri-oval. You see the 62 there trying to get a little bit of toe, drops down behind that 73 GT Daytona Porsche. See if he can get just a little bit of help from the draft and then maybe pop out. It didn't work that time. So Beretta stays low, and then about half a car width peak to the outside. You said it earlier, that little fade move, and it just says, hey, I'm going that way. And Beretta doing a good job making sure that nobody slips through. He couldn't get an advantage in traffic, but he was going to make sure nobody else could either.
Let's see how the German responds to this. Rockenfeller now pulling up on the back of Beretta.
Seeing what he can get done around the high side of the prototype challenge car, and Bruni is dropped back just a little bit in that mix-up. See what Rockenfeller, it'll be interesting to see the difference in the top speed here. We should see it relatively well. Looks even off the corner, not much of a gap. Oh, that's the 4 car.
The 4 car.
See, you were wrong that time.
I was.
All right, it's still, I've got 2 and you've got 1, so you're still ahead. But still, you see the gap there as the Corvette gives chase through the oval portion, the highest speed section of the racetrack, and that looked pretty even as they came off the corner. That gap stayed about the same. Closes up under braking, and you see Fessler really getting a good jump.
Yep.
And when you think about drafting, you're through the high banks of Daytona and you watch the Daytona 500 and you watch the cars draft and so on and so forth, these cars don't seem to, they move air out of the way, obviously, but it doesn't seem to be much clean air behind it to help you get a big draft like you see on a stock car.
A little bit, but not a huge suck up, as they say.
I think a lot of the aerodynamic devices that you have on the car, the under tray, the splitters that really help channel the air, what you get is a lot of dirty air behind the car, because these cars use a lot of air from underneath to create downforce, and then obviously the rear wing. So what you get is a lot of dirty air behind, and you don't get that 4, 5, 6 mile an hour tow that you can get out of a stock car. And while you get some gain, you don't get that big draft by that we see in stock car racing. And that's exactly what we saw there with the Corvette and the Ferrari. And should probably also note, different cars draft differently because they have a very different signature on how they move the air, and really more importantly how the air then comes back together.
So as these two are going at it, looks like Bruni has just I think relatively recently lowered his time down. I think second quickest lap of the race now.
I'm not even looking at that anymore. Okay. My color code lied to me earlier, so I'm not looking at it anymore. Fessler looks like he gets a little bit of a run towards the very end of the straightaway, maybe picks up just a bit down at the far end, maybe another mile an hour of top end speed, and then lost a little bit there coming out of the bus stop.
Yeah, he's got to defend a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't have nearly the run he had last time. Last time he had a tremendous jump off the bus stop, and this time Jimmy Bruni right there on the rear wing of the number 4. But, you know, it's interesting, too. Beretta seems to come back to both of them as they get there in the tri-oval and start to get to the braking zone. For one, it's before they get to the braking zone. He's not on the brakes yet, but he just doesn't seem to have quite that ultimate top-end speed. And I don't know if that's different aerodynamic settings or what, but there was a definitive difference.
I have to say, it appears the new GTLM aero package is, you know, it's hard to make a judgment on just one race, but it looks like they're racing well. It seems like there's greater differences in speed at different parts of the track.
You know, and hats off to the series when you've got 2 classes like GTLM and GTD to balance them from a performance standpoint the way they do, and even in the prototype category, I can't even imagine the workload that it takes. I've looked through the competition bulletins that come out. You and I were looking through Turbo Boost tables the other day, and it's just like looking at a spaghetti bowl to me. I can't make heads or tails out of it. So there are a lot smarter people than I that look through all of that. But the job that they do, the competition that they create by the balance of performance that they do generate is pretty impressive. And I know some of the teams won't agree, certainly from time to time, but by and large, they do an excellent, excellent job.
And this gives you, just following this one battle for consecutive laps like this, gives you an idea how battles break off and rejoin and so forth. You had all 3 cars together a lap before, but then Bruni got a car between him. He fell back, even though he seems to be quicker, the quickest of the bunch right now. And then a prototype comes through, and this just ebbs and flows. And sometimes you break off completely as the 01 hits pit road.
Brendan Hartley behind the wheel of the 01, and this battle continues to rage, and this time looking to the outside, not going to work. See if Fessler can cut back underneath, but that's a difficult place to do it because then you've got that little right-left jog that takes you down to the International Horseshoe. You see the overall leader, the pit stop going on. It was Hartley in the car. I think he has climbed out. There could be a driver change there, and the battle continues to rage there between the number 4 of Marcel Fessler and Olivier Beretta in that bright red number 62 Ferrari. GTLM battle is for 5th. Fessler wants it. Beretta has it. And lap after lap after lap. Be interesting to say, wow, can he get a drive off this time? He had a pretty good run 2 laps ago and gained at the end of the straightaway, and we talked about it seemed like the 62 lost a little bit at the very top end. Is Fessler close enough to get it done? And more importantly, is he far enough away from Jimmy Bruni that Bruni can't make a move? Almost looks like Fessler said, can I get a little bit of a tow from the prototype that went by? What do I have? What can I do? It's not going to happen around the outside. Not there.
He needs to have his spotter run down and talk to the 72 spotter and have him line up together.
Say, let's both go by. Yeah. But yeah, a prancing horse front and back. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Great run again for Fessler off the bus stop, right on the rear wing now. Expect Beretta to stay low.
Yeah, can't get him off the yellow line.
Oh, and Beretta is going to come in. Beretta now pitting, but even with that, as the Corvette flashes by, Olivier Beretta comes to the pits going, ha!
Exactly. Mission accomplished.
Exactly. Just staying in front all the way until he drops below the yellow line is a bit of a moral victory, and just says, hey, just wanting to let you know we got you covered, at least for right now. Pit stop and a driver change on the 100. Night Stalker's out, Tommy. Does he know you call him that?
No, that's the first time I've called him.
Andy Prio now behind the wheel of the 01. We'll have to wait and see who got in the 100. Back underway, and there's the 62. Driver side door open. It looks like they are doing a driver change as well. You see a driver assistant kneeling down there helping with belts. A belch of fire out the exhaust from the 488 as they restart.
pulling a tear off.
And we've seen a lot of window cleaning going on, and people at home are probably going, why don't they just pull a tear off?
Because you don't want to run out of tear offs.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah. So I don't know if they do a one clean, one tear, but you want to save those tear offs, especially for the early morning sunrise.
Well, it's one of those deals where you can probably clean the tear off several times before you've got to remove it, and then you can clean the next one several times before you've got to remove it. Like you said, you don't want to run out of tear offs now. Fessler has his hands full of Jimmy Bruni.
I forgot about it. I mean, it should have been obvious to me. I forgot about the history. Beretta obviously used to drive for Corvette Racing, and I think.
Yeah, but he doesn't think about that anymore.
Yeah, and I think he would have liked to have stayed longer than he did. Yes. And so that gave him extra pleasure.
Wow. Bruni, I thought, was going to get by him there. It looks like the 72 has more top end than Beretta had.
Yeah.
It's the same car, and that could be an aerodynamic setting, but it'll be interesting to see. And now being told that the 90 is going to get a drive-through for spinning the rear tires while up on the jacks. That's about the third penalty I've seen for that today, at least the third penalty.
And it's probably when they're getting ready to drop it off the jack, selecting first gear. If the clutch is slipping a little bit, it can spin those tires.
Pit stops down in the Ganassi camp. It's Pippo Durrani who leads overall. Honda Power up front 1 and 2 here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Here's a look at your leaderboard. Love this time of night at Daytona International Speedway. Every time you come here for the Rolex 24, it is carnival atmosphere down in the infield, and this year it is spectacular. There's a look at the weather. 61 degrees, 83% humidity, basically no wind at all, and no rain. That's the important thing. You don't need your WeatherTech floor coverings right now, but you definitely needed them the other day. Plenty of mud around.
But some of the people watching might.
That's true. There could be snow. WeatherTech floor
There's
mats.
a lot of snow.
There you go.
All my skiing friends are stoked right these days.
There you go. 60 out in front, but all day long. The 0102 of Chip Ganassi Racing has been running well, and the Ford GTs ran well for a while as well, Matt.
Brian, we documented very well Chip Ganassi's new Fords and how beautiful those are, and he also brought out the 01 and 02. Is this almost like old school racing? The 01, 02, you're not going to be running for points. It's just hammer down, go for the win.
That's it. I mean, we're here. Our plan was to defend our title we won last year here, and that's what we're trying to do.
When you look at this weekend, you've already had a very special award handed to you, the Bob Snodgrass Award for Excellence, and I know that means a lot.
It really does. You know, Bob was the glue, I think, that held a lot of this sports car stuff together for a lot of years, obviously with his history with Brumos, Porsche, going back, you know, with Hurley and Peter and all the way, you know. Bob's been a sports car guy all around. He was all about what's good for the sport, and very unselfish, always accepting of change. He was just a great guy for the sport, and somebody any team owner would certainly emulate.
And you also had on Friday announcing the Motorsports Hall of Fame class as well.
That, I'll tell you, that has me a little shocked, to tell you the truth.
Why is that? I mean, you look at all that you've done. I mean, your racing resume as an owner is almost unmatched.
I know, but I've always passed myself off as the young guy and the new up-and-comer. And, now I got a daughter in college, and I have, I'm nominated for the Hall of Fame. I mean, I'm just I'm starting to feel my age a little bit, maybe.
Well, I don't know how old you are, but you don't look that old, because I see the fun that you and Felix Sabates are having here. All smiles.
We are, and we do have a lot of fun. We got Rob Kaufman now as a partner, too, and we have a lot of fun at these races, and I look forward to being here for a long time yet.
All right, good luck this weekend, Chip.
Thank you.
Young Chip Ganassi.
Yeah, it's, I mean, his record is unbelievable.
But you heard him say Bob Snodgrass there's the 007, and James Davison had it in the lead a little bit earlier on. It just shows the strength of Kevin Buckler's team. But he said, Bob Snodgrass was a guy that you wanted to emulate. Well, you think about who he's been around through his IndyCar career and his sports car career. I know he has high respect for Roger Penske, and who doesn't? And, you know, I think he's kind of taken the best that he's seen on all of those fronts, whether it's a Bob Snodgrass or a Roger Penske and the other people that he admires in the sport. And he takes their business acumen and their sporting you know, personality and puts them all together, and that's what built Chip Ganassi Racing.
Yeah, and but he also is uniquely Chip. You know,
there is no doubt about that.
His way too. The one thing I love it is how he I think one of his strengths is he doesn't sugarcoat things. They never lie to themselves and deceive themselves. Sometimes it's shocking if you're on the other end of those assessments. But without naming names, there's a couple stories like that as we see the 67 in. They're going to town, just practice, just a test session in every way.
Take a look at the Porsche news and notes. Talk about Chip Ganassi, Bob Snodgrass Award, Bob Aiken Award to Judy Stropis, Phil Hill Award to Scott Pruitt. It was handed out the other night at the Road Racing Drivers Club dinner here at Daytona International Speedway as the 67 heads back out on track. And all of those names right there, Judy Stropis, she may not be a name that fans recognize out there in the grandstands, but you should, because you've read a lot of her work, you've seen a lot of her work, and a lot of her work goes unnoticed and has for years and years, but the sport wouldn't be what the sport is without Judy Stropis.
Yeah, well, she's got, you know, years and years of PR, but what made her famous was she used to hand score 24-hour races. Before computers and before computerized timing, the top teams hired her, and she had this way of doing with just a single stopwatch. She could time 30 cars. She could do lap charts. She would not get up to go to the bathroom. She would not leave the thing for 24 hours. And so that's what she did first. She's been really in and around racing for 50 years.
And she's a great lady. Stevenson Motorsports in.
That's right, Brian. Getting pretty busy down here in pit lane. Lots of GT traffic down here in just the last few minutes. Lawson Aschenbach handing over to Andrew Davis in the number 6 Audi. This team, Stevenson Racing, and running 5th right now in GTD. And they were so successful in the Continental Tire Challenge Series for so many years. But this time last year, we heard that they were going to try and pop back up into the Tudor Series. And I think all along last year, we just assumed that they were going to stay with the GM, possibly come in with that Cadillac GT3 program. But it was after Petit Le Mans last year that they got to test drive this Audi, and after that test, that's when the team said, that's the direction we're going.
Those red glowing lights they have in the grill and in the engine bay are a little disconcerting.
Yeah,
it looks like something's on fire.
I saw one earlier and thought the same thing. It was like, whoops, that's not good.
But they're a very welcome addition to this GTD category.
Well, I think you look at what has happened with GTD, bringing in the GT3 equipment. You see the new teams like Change Racing and O'Gara Motorsports. You see Stevenson coming in, and they've competed in the GT category before, but it really has attracted quality programs, owners, and drivers, and that's why the explosive growth in that category is Andrew Davis heads back out. AJ Allmendinger up front again, and that's exactly what Mike Shake wants to see at the end of 24 hours. The 60 running so well here at Daytona. Caution flies again, 6th caution, full course caution here at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Mark Kwame off at the bus stop. Problems on the way in. The car is spun to a stop, and he's having a hard time getting it restarted. You look way in the back, and you see the car, wow, comes around pretty quickly. And that looks like either too much rear brake bias or perhaps a down change locks the rear end a little bit, and that one of the highest speeds, actually the highest speed section of the racetrack, and around the car goes very, very quickly. And he was on the radio a minute ago saying, I just can't get it out of 3rd gear. It's one of the reasons that he wasn't able to get it restarted.
Looks like he might have now.
And here's the deal. These prototype challenge cars are pretty simple, in quotes, compared to a lot of the other cars that are out there. We said no traction control, no ABS, do have paddle shift, and it's a 6.2 liter V8 engine in the back. They're all the same, which is why it was strange to see the engine loss on the 54 car. We don't see engines go in these cars very often. But they are sophisticated enough that guys like Mark Kwame, who don't drive them all the time, there are still certain procedures that you have to go through to restart, find reverse, get neutral if you spin, install the car when it's in a gear. There's all kinds of procedures that you have to go through. And when you don't do this all the time, you get in the heat of battle like this, and it can be difficult and frustrating to try to get it all sorted out when you're on the other side of the racetrack. While they work to get this car back underway, let's take a look at our Continental race recap. Take some highlights throughout the day. Remember, the 4 GTs ran strong, but early Ryan Briscoe with a problem in the 67. Ended up being a shifting problem, and the actuators that just moved the gears back and forth weren't getting it done, and had to take him back to the garage and do a lot of work. But that left the 66 on track, and Joey Hand was absolutely spectacular in that car in the early going. Really, really aggressive, but then the 911 uses the pick in traffic. Gets back by, and then the 2 into pit lane, and then we saw Delta Wing to the lead. Catherine Legg stayed up front in that car for a long, long time.
Led more laps than they did all last season in that car.
Problems for the 66. That fluid on the ground, brake fluid, pulled a line off when they were making a change, and then a problem for the 66. A brake problem, and then a problem for Joao Barbosa.
Cold tires got shoved in the dirty part of the track, got away with this one, just a slight nudge into the tires.
All these restarts, when everybody gets stacked up, that's what can happen. You rode on board with John Pugh, makes contact with the 2 of Johannes van Overbeek just in front of him. Oh, that's exciting. It's a flat right rear on the 25 headed into 1.
Yeah, and had to limp it all the way back around.
Oh.
And this one was the heartbreaker. Cars in the middle of the road for some time, and the Delta Wing did not know it was there. Somehow missed the radio communication and just kind of deer in the headlights.
Problem for the 0-2, yeah.
Cold brakes, cold tires.
And what's the common theme here? These restarts have really created some havoc. Jamie McMurray, man, you don't want to sit and get a look like that. You see the 60 back around the 55 and into the lead. And 4 GTs, problems, small problems, but they all hurt. And a flat right rear, and then another flat right rear. And we saw a problem with that flat right on the 25. So seen at least 3 cars with flat right rear problems, and these guys can't be tired yet.
Well, like Jack Reacher says, sleep when you can.
Sleep when you can. I like it. Here's a look at your class leaders right now. 6 cautions, 19 laps, 21 lead changes, cars out 3, and 2 of those cars taken out in that same incident, and that was Chris Cummings sitting there in that prototype challenge car, and Andy Merrick was behind the wheel of Delta Wing, and just, that's one of those you just kind of scratch your head at.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense. Obviously, you know, they also, the car had been sitting there for a while, so A, should have known, but B, arguably, maybe should have been under full course caution as well. Hindsight being 20/20.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be certainly different views on that, and we heard radio communication between Tim Keene, who runs that program, and Andy Merrick, and Tim saying, what happened? Well, I didn't, and Andy said, well, I didn't know he was there, and Tim said, I told you he was there all the way down the front straightaway on the radio, and Andy said, I just didn't hear it. So perhaps some communication problems as well. It's amazing how well radios work at sometimes, and other times you either don't hear or you get some interference. The 5 is in, the 31 is in, and we did have a report that there had been some radio issues with Delta Wing, so maybe that was the problem. Climbing in is going to be a driver change at Mike Shank Racing. Yep, Oz Negri climbing in.
So they're going to run, didn't have AJ in the car very long, so maybe keep him fresh and give him a few laps to stay sharp, keep him fresh.
And out they go. And one of the things that they have said is that the drivability of this Honda power plant has improved so much. They're learning about the traction control. They're learning how to drive with it. They're trying to work on the throttle mapping. And with the technical and sophisticated processes that you have with these cars these days, it takes a slew of engineers to get all that sorted out. There's the 007. And we saw that car in the lead a little bit earlier, and it is a star-studded lineup. Even the guys that aren't driving the cars are pretty special down there at TRG.
And Kevin Buckler looking at the scoring monitor, seeing where his car is running, the Aston Martin. But Sergio Perez, how would you describe your travel day?
Well, it was a bit of my day, but finally I got here to support my brother, my Mexican driver. So really pleased to be here. It's my first time in Daytona. And I have to say that it's been really exciting, something very special and something that I really want to do in the future.
When you look at the $400 million project, you were directly across from the start-finish line. What are your thoughts looking across at the expanse of the new World Center of Racing?
It's just incredible, you know. It's something that really makes you feel proud of the motorsport, you know. And it's one of those places, those tracks in the world, all around the world, that is so popular. So it's definitely worth it to have such an investment in this place.
All right, thank you, Sergio. Enjoy the rest of the race.
Thank you.
Well, it's a pretty good lineup in this car when you look at it. James Davison, Santiago Creel has spent a lot of time in the Porsche GT3 Cup Series of IMSA. He talked about his brother Antonio Perez, a champion in Supercopa and Super V8 in Mexico, and then Ricardo Perez, a Truck Series champion in Mexico, and then Phil Yoon as well. Lars Phil Yoon, another one of the drivers in the car. So they got 5 guys that are really good. And if you're not a Formula One fan, you may not know who Sergio Perez is, but he's a guy that drives for Force India. And when he looks across and says this stadium is pretty impressive, he's seen some pretty impressive racetracks in his career.
Well, and his roots go back in sports car racing. I've known his dad, Antonio, I want to say for 30 years, and I didn't realize Sergio was his son until I was watching the Mexican Grand Prix, and I said, that's
I know that guy.
Antonio Perez. Oh, duh.
Cars lined up behind the full course caution, trying to get back to green here at Daytona. This has been our 6th. We'll be back to green very shortly when we come back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. AJ Allmendinger just hopping out of the lead of the race, handing over to your teammate there, Oz Negri. And AJ, you've been running up front. You got a lot of action behind you. How was that car?
It's pretty sick right now, honestly. It's a fast race car. You know, everybody at OnRoad to really develop this Ligier and Honda HPD for going out there and getting all the motor that we can. It's just it's a little nerve-wracking. It's almost too good right now. It's fun to drive. Really proud to get Tire Kingdom and Florida Lottery to come on board, you know, for such a little team that we push so hard to get big name sponsors like that's a really big deal. So far so good.
Yeah, this little team, they're looking strong. We're getting ready to go back to green. AJ, get some rest.
Some of the guys up front starting to put in those fast lap times. Tony Kanaan, Andy Prio, Johannes Van Overbeek just turned his fastest lap. Or actually has the fastest lap, I should say. It's Durrani in the 2 car that has the fastest lap. Why, Tommy? Why do I look at this timing and scoring screen and try to ascertain what's going on? And look at this on the restart, the prototypes sweeping around the GT cars, just as you would expect. But this has been crazy all night long. Tires especially cold now, as cold as it's been since the start of the race, and already cars sliding a bit wide in turn 1. Now they'll head down to the International Horseshoe. Man, it was 3 wide, a little bit further back, headed into 1. And this is where cooler heads just have to prevail. And there's the tire smoke.
Prio got in too hot in the 01 also, both in turn 1 and in turn 3.
Didn't learn his lesson.
Stubborn.
Stubborn that way.
/ fast.
They've gotten through. And now they need to clear the West Horseshoe. They'll head down to turn 6, and the field seems to have taken it, well, I was going to say seems to have taken it easier, and I'm not sure that I will say that until they've all made it onto the banking and we get through the bus stop the first time. See them working side by side. Oh.
Still a lot of cars running.
You know, and that's the thing that's amazing. Back even 10 years ago, the attrition at this point in time would have been pretty high. And I think right now we only have maybe 3 cars out of the race on board with Negre. And you heard AJ say the car's pretty sick right now. It's really, really good. And now that was something experience-wise that we saw John Pugh have a problem there. Negre went to the brakes a little light, a little early, kind of sussed out the situation, little blip of throttle to stay up with those guys, and made sure that he stayed well back and didn't get caught up in any stack up going into the bus stop.
He also breathed it when he was coming up like he did here on guys that are already too wide. There is a lane up high, and if this was the end of the race, he would have kept it hammered down and squeezed up next to the wall. But when you've got a car that good, you know you can be patient.
Well, and you think about how we finished off the season last year at Petit Le Mans. Obviously, the race was so wet. It was stopped early, but all weekend long it was wet, and extensive damage to that 60 car throughout, multiple incidents, and it was over $500,000 worth of damage done to that 60 car that weekend. So I'm sure that's in their mind as well.
To show you some of how the behind-the-scenes business stuff of racing works, it was over $500,000 in damage, but he actually had insurance on the car, which covered $300,000 of it, and they paid like $175,000. So you can insure anything. You can insure one corner, and then you can insure the right side of the car. What did you say
they still had to pay, though?
$175,000. I mean, well, if you get a bill of $500, you pay $175,000. You kind of are happy.
Yeah, I can see how you'd kind of be happy, but that's still a lot of money, isn't it?
To you and me.
Yeah, exactly. Tony Kanaan out in front. The 02 that won this race last year has run without a hiccup. Obviously still a long way to go, but it's typical Ganassi fashion. And the fireworks, there they are. You see them every year when you come here, and it's just
the first people to see them from the new stadium.
That's true.
How about that?
That's just spectacular. It's part of the event here, and it's just another thing that makes it spectacular. I do have to say, the first time I came here, all of a sudden I had my back turned because I was down in pit lane, and I saw a bright sky behind me and loud explosions, and I kind of scared me a little bit, but
it's a pretty good show.
It is a good show. Stop looking out the window, Tommy, and look at the monitor.
That's what I was talking about.
Kanaan up front now, going back to the battle in GTLM a little bit. You see the number 5 Daytona prototype trying to slide around the outside. Felipe Albuquerque working his way through some of the GT traffic, and right in front of him is the 60 of Oz Negre, and in front of them the 100 BMW. Kuno Whitmer now behind the wheel. Kuno running 4th in category. You ran with Kuno in the Dodge program.
Yeah, I watched Kuno kind of blossom from a young, passionate guy that was happy to have a factory break to a guy that felt like he belonged here, and then watched him become the GTLM champion. It should have been co-champions with Jonathan Bomarito, but they chose to split him in the last race. And then all of a sudden left high and dry, kind of twisting in the wind when Viper pulled out. And so he is over the moon to be affiliated with this new Rahal Letterman BMW factory team in their fancy dress whites, prancing around the grounds here. But Kuno, it's hard to find a nicer guy, and I think a lot of people are happy that he landed on his feet. Riding on board with the 25. See that car dragging prototype challenge car, and Kuno trying to get a run because he knows this car, once they get on the straightaway, is going to stretch away. He's giving them all kinds of flashing lights, and this is frustrating because the guy's clearly parking it in the corners, and then pulls away a little bit on the straightaway. Let's see if he can make a move on the outside, maybe down here into 1.
So he can get it down in the brake zone. All right, so coming up next, the FA Cup match day, MK Dons and Chelsea. Just at past 10 o'clock. And more fireworks firing here at Daytona. And Whitmer gets it done. Past that prototype challenge car, but now he's got to put some distance between himself, because when they get back up to the banking, the prototype challenge car is going to have top speed again.
Has a couple corners to do it, and If he has to put a block on for a corner or two to give him a chance to pull aside, he probably will.
Oh, God, that was close. Now you're watching the Rolex 24 at Daytona, so you can stand by for some post-race UFC Fight Night coverage. That'll be coming up next in a little bonus coverage right now of the Rolex 24. Negre, man, just slid around the backside and around. This is the battle for second.
And again, that was experience we've talked about a couple times with him already. But you know, everyone's trying to get the shot up on the banking, but the slower cars are told you got to get down low on the banking. They can't hold it low because they're using up all the road, but they try to get low as quick as they can. And that 48 Lamborghini was able to. And Oz started to go low and then switched back high up and around how you're supposed to.
Always what they say in the drivers' meeting: slow is low. That's where they want you to be, and they want you to be predictable so that you're always in the same place. But Johannes van Overbeek now behind the wheel of the number 2, really beginning to put pressure on Andy Prio. Prio not well versed in the Daytona prototype, really hasn't spent any time in one, so he's kind of coming to grips with the car, and obviously as wet as it's been, hasn't had much dry time this weekend.
And we've seen, you know, the P2 based cars have shown incredible speed when they get their tires up to temp, really get running. A little slower to bring them up. AJ more or less confirmed that. And Van Overbeek has his car in gear here too. If you look at the fast lap on these two cars, it's actually more than a second. That Patron car's fast lap more than a second quicker than the 01.
Two very different types of cars, P2 versus Daytona prototype, so the aero is different.
Hard to feel too bad for the DP-based cars because they kind of had their way for a number of years, and it was really tough sledding for the P2 guys.
Meanwhile, Tony Kanaan pulling out now over 5.5 seconds last time by at the line. And it looks like the top speed is very similar.
Well, P2 car a little faster. Kanaan just ran fastest lap for the 02 car, 40.661.
And there's Kanaan out in front. You can see the gap all the way back to second and third now. He's got clear sailing out in front. Well, so they're ready to go in Newark for FS1 UFC Fight Night post-fight. Limited coverage of the Rolex 24 will continue on Fox Sports Go in the overnight hours, and we'll be back for full coverage beginning tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern on FS1. So good night from us in Daytona. Let's send it right away to John Anik in Newark for FS1 UFC Fight Night post-fight. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Have a great night. Don't miss any of the Rolex 24 at Daytona.